Wonder if Linda's audio.
So we're live, you guys.
Hello.
Hello, girlfriend crew. Hello. I've got some esteemed members here on By Natural Hair Rock here to chat with you tonight. We're having a little bit of technical difficulties, but we're going to start shortly. We're waiting for one more panel member, and then we're going to start the show. So if you guys can hear me, please let me know in the comment box below. I see Linda is... So comments are coming in. I just want to let the girlfriend crew know that for the duration of the beginning of the conversation, we're just going to follow a very brief kind of like a agenda whereby we'll be discussing some questions that our panelists have so...
Yes, I can hear.
Linda, you can hear us?
You.
Oh no, we lost Linda.
Oh no, it might be her Wi-Fi connection.
Oh, there's Samantha.
Samantha's in. Okay.
Can you hear me though?
Samantha, we can hear you. I know you said you wanted to be on audio, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so we can hear you. Can you hear us?
I can, yes.
Okay.
Excellent.
Linda, we can hear you, but we can't see you. So if you're, for some reason it kicked you back out. So I'm gonna ask if you can perhaps click the link again and then come back in.
Very good. Hello, Samantha.
Hey, Mark, how you doing?
Good, good. Great to be on here with you.
Yeah, good to see
Awesome.
you.
My natural hair is rocking.
I see, said the blind man.
Girlfriend,
I love
our
it.
esteemed panelists, they came through at the last minute. This is literally like we owe them so much thanks for coming here and spending their time with us like this. It's just absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. We still lost. I can't seem to see Linda.
No, don't see her there.
Man, please bear with us, guys.
Wow.
While we wait for Linda.
I see a Linda Jones says, I can hear you loud and clear in the comments. I wonder if that's the same Linda Jones that's part of the Annie Malone Society, Historical Society.
Oh, true. The other member, right? Let me see if I can message her.
Yeah, I'm wondering if she's just struggling to sign on to it.
Right.
Wi-Fi problems.
Huh. Okay. Yeah, please bear with us, guys. How's everyone doing tonight? Let's start a conversation. How are you guys doing?
Blessed.
I'm doing
blessed.
good. I'm doing good. It's been, yeah, it has been really interesting times for, I know myself as a business owner, just trying to adapt to this whole COVID thing. And I know that it's just like the world is just shifting. It's just absolutely insane. It's crazy.
Yeah, I'll bet. I mean, it's just crazy how time is running, and it feels like this started, like every day is like the exact same day. Oh, I see Linda now. Let me add her to the stream. She's back. Every day seems to be running into the same day.
Oh, perfect.
Linda, are you with us? Girlfriend crew, let me know if you can see everybody. Pretty Brownie One says all is well. Looking forward to this chat tonight. And they came out for you guys. Usually we're a small event, but my
awesome.
panelists brought the crowd, so thank you.
I do see it's Linda Jones has answered in the comments. So we do have the other founding member of the Annie Malone Historical Society.
Yes. Okay, so let's start this show. For those of you who don't know, my name is Lavinia Latham. I am a human rights lawyer as well as the equity and human rights advisor at the Toronto Catholic District School Board. And so I run Natural Hair Rocks. I am the founder. I've been running this blog that's dedicated to raising awareness and an understanding for fine natural hair, which is generally understood to be type 4C, type 4 hair. So finer strands. The definition of a fine strand is one in which you could barely feel it within your fingers. And usually the natural hair that we understand the most or we hear a lot about is big loopy curls, you know, kind of like a thicker strand. So we don't hear as much about type 4 hair. And so that's the platform that, you know, Fine Natural Hair Rocks is meant to kind of fill that gap. Today we have 4. This is our very first time guest here on Fine Natural Hair Rocks. And I want to do them the honor of introducing them and really showing you exactly who they are, because they are absolutely fantastic people. So starting with our, you know, let's start we'll start from Mr. Mark Adams. And I'm just gonna pull up his bio right here. So Mr. Mark Adams has been in the hair care industry since 1990. That's 30 years strong. He has been involved at various levels of the beauty industry, from salon owner to distributor. He really loves the social side of the hair business, and he is very excited to see this generation carving out their own lane in the industry. And he also looks forward to seeing all that is taking place with this generation of entrepreneurs. I can tell you in my own personal capacity of knowing Mr. Adams, he's absolutely amazing. He has such an interest and such a dedication to helping new business owners, especially within the hair care industry, and just Black business in general here in Canada. And I am so honored to have you on my show. So thank you, Mark, for coming in.
It's great to be here.
Next on our wonderful panel, we've got Naomi Adams. Naomi Adams is the owner and CEO of Beauty Club Outlet, an online and in-store curly hair product and wig boutique that is located in Cambridge, Ontario, right here in Canada, that provides hair products to communities all throughout Canada and the United States. After studying at the University of Guelph for marketing management and psychology, okay, girl, and working for American International, she ventured into entrepreneurship along with her father, creating, founding, and operating Beauty Club Outlet. Girlfriends, if you notice a resemblance between Mark and Naomi, it's because the good looks run in the family, and they are very much related. That is her father. Her goal. Naomi's goal is to raise the standard of beauty of the beauty supply store that we know today, and she creates a brand that provides its clients with assistance in choosing the right products for them the first time around. She's passionate about the advancement of women of color, female entrepreneurship, and improving our community's knowledge and perspective of natural hair. So that's Naomi Adams. Please welcome Naomi Adams to the show. Next up, we've got Samantha Dixon. When Samantha Dixon started in the beauty industry as a receptionist and bookkeeper 3 decades ago, she never imagined that she would one day own her own business and be forging new pathways for African Nova Scotians in beauty services. She refreshed her skills through the support of the East Preston Empowerment Academy, EPEA, and wrote her Red Seal exam in 2016. She is now a Red Seal endorsed hairstylist who owns her own business in Dartmouth. She didn't stop there though. She received her Atlantic Trades Business Seal, otherwise known as the Blue Seal, in 2017. In addition to managing her own business, Sam is a co-founder of the Black Beauty Culture Association, whose mandate is to promote Black beauty culture and to educate Black beauty professionals and consumers. Please join us in welcoming Samantha Dixon Slaughter to the show.
Thank you. Thanks.
Last but not least, we've got Ms. Linda Nance, the president of the Annie Malone Historical Society. Linda formerly served as the director of resource development for the Annie Malone Children and Family Service Center in St. Louis, Missouri. In that capacity, she annually coordinated activities involving 5 different fundraising events, which the culminating event being the annual May Day Parade, the oldest and second largest African American parade celebration in the country. She opened 2 cafes, secured authorization to raise funds to leverage over $216,000 in neighborhood assistance tax credits, and successfully conducted a challenge grant campaign for the agency, raising $260,000. Wow, absolutely amazing.
Wow.
Prior to starting her career in fundraising, Linda completed an internship with the Federal Bureau of Prisons, working as a corrections officer at the Robert Kennedy Youth Center in Morgantown, West Virginia. She completed qualifications for police officers training from the Northern Virginia Criminal Justice Academy in Fairfax, Virginia, and she served 6 years as a deputy sheriff to the Fairfax County Sheriff's Department. Linda held the rank of corporal and served as a jailer, bailiff, court services, and transportation officer. She also served on the department hostage negotiation team, which is responsible for evaluating threat scenarios, conducting training drills, and working with hostile inmates. Linda earned her bachelor degree in psychology and a bachelor degree in sociology from Maryville University in St. Louis, Missouri. She holds an associate in applied science degree. It emphasizes in human services corrections from St. Louis Community College at Florissant Valley, also in St. Louis, Missouri. A 2009 graduate of the Focus St. Louis Leadership Program, Linda has also completed the Community Arts Training and the Tiger Fellowship programs sponsored by the St. Louis Regional Arts Commission. Intent is to impact social change efforts through the arts. She is a longtime advocate for children, active community participant, and has served as a member of Citizen for Missouri's Children, president of the Webster Groves Board of Education, member of the Missouri School Board Association, and is a proud member of the John E. and Regina S. Nance Memorial Scholarship Fund, awarding over $300,000 in scholarships over its 36-year history. Please, girlfriends, give our esteemed panelists a huge round of applause.
Yay!
All right.
Thank you so much for coming. You guys, honestly, you overwhelm me with the breadth of experience, and wow. wow. So today we're going to really, what we're going to do is we're going to open up the floor amongst our panelists. We've got some questions for them. We're going to dive into this self-made documentary, and we're going to go panelist by panelist. Starting with, I guess, let's start with you, Mark, okay?
Very
so,
good.
Mark Adams, as you guys remember, he's a haircare industry expert for over 30 years. Mark, you were actually in the self-made documentary. Would you please describe to us what it was like being on such a monumental film?
Sure. When I heard that they were going to be filming, they had set up the base camp literally about a block and a half from my front door, and I attended church this in my hometown, and that church was used as their base camp for makeup and hair and everything. So of course I just had to get my nose right in there and find out, okay, who's in charge here, what's going on. We're in the industry. I know all about her story, and I just wanted to get involved. So it was super exciting for me to know that this was happening right in my hometown, and the mansion that the film was much of the film was filmed at. I remember being in there as an 18-year-old. It was called Forbes Mansion. And he was a very wealthy industrialist at the time. And I remember going and asking him for some money for a building program to help our youth, and he writing me checks. So to be there, all these years later, was just like 38 years or whatever it was. 30. I was 18 at the time when I went in there. I'm 55 now. So that was exciting. And then to be able to involve other people within my hometown. So my wife was involved, my daughter, our head engineer, our accountant, we all friends, we all were able to take part in this film. And to me, the most exciting part about being involved in this film was that Black hair care has always been within our community a part of economic development.
Right.
And so I was very excited that this story was going to be told. And my hopes was that, something would be caught. Some things are caught more than taught. So when you see an example of somebody who has used this industry to advance themselves and to advance other people, that's what really made it special for me.
That's amazing. hearing your account of, you know, your firsthand experience and just being like neck and neck together in that historical place, like I can only imagine, like you paint such a vivid picture.
Right, right. Well, you know, and I mean, being in proximity of some of the stars, you know, and just to see them really and how they're interacting. And I remember Octavia Harris walking by me, and I remember her going, "Oh, something's got to be done with his hair." It was very humid in the house, and I remember looking over to her, and it's kind of a faux pas. And I said, "That humidity will get you every time." You know, I almost wanted to say, well, you know, I got some anti-reversion spray here. Let's get, but that's a faux pas. You're not supposed to talk to the eye. So after that, I said, well, I better, you know, because they're trying to think about their lines and so on and so forth. I just couldn't help it. So, you know, you're in the proximity of them, and I couldn't help but comment on her hair at that point.
Naomi, you were also on set. You were also on set, girl. What was that like being on set?
Yes.
And your mom, apparently. That is so cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Honestly, it was so cool. Like it kind of was just weird how everything lined up. You know, Mark, my dad is always the go-getter. He's a salesman from his core. So it was so easy for him when he went down there and just was like, you know, talking with people and everything. They were basically like, we need people of color as extras. Like we can't find anybody in this area. And we were like, oh yeah, we can do this. And the coolest part for me, honestly, was being around some of those gorgeous A-listers, but not just A-listers, but you know, these Black women that have done so well in Hollywood. And you know, the scene that wasn't in there where I was with Tiffany Haddish and she was like cracking jokes, and you know, it was just really interesting to kind of see them working, because you see the movie on screen, but when you really see everything that goes on behind the scenes, it is mind-blowing, you know, what you see versus how that thing is actually created. Like the set, the blocking, the big light that's behind you, but you don't see that light because, you know, the camera's filming forward, and all of this equipment. And it was just the coolest experience. And then because, you know, as an extra, you're like, well, made it in there, like I don't know. And then, you know, to watch it and see yourself was a really cool experience. I was like, oh my gosh, like this is so cool. It was really, really, really cool. It was amazing. And same with Margaret. This story is something that I actually have known for a long time because of, you know, my father and the history. And you know, she's a role model for me. Her, I was telling you earlier, you know, her, Michelle Obama, Annie Malone, like these are people who I very aspire towards in a lot of different ways. So it was so cool to be a part of it, for sure.
Yeah, and I remember, you know, you and I were talking earlier today about, you know, this, and we were just fangirling. I think everybody, the Crowford crew, everybody who's watching, I think we can all agree, everyone who's on this panel, just how important it is to have those figures of excellence that we, you know, we uphold so highly, and we get excited about people like Michelle Obama and Madam C.J. Walker and Annie Malone. Like it's just, it's a feeling that takes you over. So I can totally just imagine how you must have felt on that set, contributing to what must have felt in the moment, like, you know, history, right? Like, well, it is. It's a form of history.
Yeah.
Create someone's story, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. History being told.
Exactly. Speaking of stories, I'm going to ask Samantha. Okay, so let's ask Linda. Linda, what in the Self-Made documentary? What were your thoughts? Let's start like that. So I'm sure you saw Self-Made. For those of you guys who don't know who Ms. Linda Nance is, and you're jumping in on this call right now, she's the president of the Annie Malone Historical Society. So for those of you who don't know who Annie Malone is and who have watched Self-Made, that was loosely, as they put it, Addie Monroe's character. So Linda. Okay. So I don't know. We've lost Linda. I'm having difficulties connecting with Linda. So what we'll do, Linda, is we're gonna move to Samantha briefly, just to keep things rolling, and then we're gonna return to you, okay?
I'm hoping.
Oh, are you there? I thought I heard something.
Yeah, I did too.
I heard something there.
I think that was Samantha.
Or not.
No, it wasn't me.
That wasn't
There she
you?
go.
Oh,
There
was
you go.
Okay.
Samantha? We're gonna jump to you, okay?
Nope, you can't hear
Hi?
me.
I can hear you. Can you hear
There's,
us?
there's Linda.
Oh, that's Linda. Okay. Girlfriends, bear with us, please. Linda.
I think her connection might be coming in and out.
Yeah, I think so too. So, Linda, if you can hear us, I'm going to ask to go as close to your modem as possible. And if you can even connect your modem directly. I know that's like very technical talks, but yeah. And then while you're doing that.
Can you hear me any better?
Oh, that's perfect.
Can you hear me any better?
Yes.
Yeah, I just heard her.
I heard her. That was better. Whatever you just did, that was really good. And I'm seeing from the
At all.
chat.
Can you?
Yes. Okay. Okay, so Linda, how about, because one of Samantha's first question, Samantha is kind of leaning into some of the things that I know you're going to give us the juicy on. So, Samantha, are you there? Samantha? Linda, are you back? I don't know what is going on. Samantha?
Oh, no.
I'm here.
Oh, you're here. Okay. So, Samantha, we're going to give Linda an opportunity to, hopefully the Wi-Fi might come back. But Samantha, you're a hairstylist, and you're also the president of Black Beauty Culture Association of Nova Scotia, if I've got that correctly. How
Yes.
do you feel with your background watching the Self-Made documentary?
How did I feel about it when I watched it? It was messy. The way I would describe it is that it was messy. I felt that, I felt they put some of our business on the street unnecessarily.
Right.
And everyone knows that Black people don't like their business on the street. We like to fix our stuff in-house.
Yep.
And I think some stuff was left out that was necessary to be put in.
Mm-hmm.
And the story was, to me, it was incomplete. Literally, it was incomplete. But it was messy. It was a messy film.
Yeah. What parts of it were messy?
A lot, like a lot. After I think the first two, after the first two episodes, it got very messy.
Yeah.
I mean, the history was messy. The way they presented the historical figures, it was messy. It was messy.
Yeah.
And this is literally, like, to me, it's almost it's an in-house conversation. So it's a kind of like a conversation that we would actually really get into, because it's really deep, and it's a conversation we'd really get into if we were all sitting together in one room.
Yep.
Because there's stuff in the film that probably needs to be fixed. Literally.
Samantha, I'm seeing people in the comments, they're saying things like they loved the series.
Well, it was a great series. It was a great movie.
Yeah.
And it was entertaining, but it was messy. It was very well put together. The historical facts needed to be checked, really, literally.
Yeah. You know, I feel like we could get some insider knowledge from Linda on this, because, you know, I wonder if Linda is if her connection, if we're able to connect with her yet, because I'm really interested to know, and I feel like the Curl Chat's interested to know as well too. What does the story maker, the historian behind this story, what does she have to say about that? Because she has the facts. She definitely has the facts. And I mean, from what I'm hearing from you, from what I'm hearing from Mark, Naomi, you know, the general public at large, a lot of this isn't matching up, right? So Linda, if you're there, if you're able to chime in. Uh-oh. So while we wait for Linda, Marva Squire says she felt it was messy also. Naturally, Zandra says, what was messy? The husband drama? Linda? And I mean, from what I'm hearing from you, are you guys hearing that? Public, so Linda, if you're there, if you're able to chime in.
Can you
Oh, that might be Linda's
hear me at this point?
Sorry?
Guess not.
So while
Oh, we hear you. We hear you.
Says she felt it was messy also. Okay, so I'm getting some feedback. I'm gonna go ahead and mute mics except for Linda's. Hopefully that makes Linda?
You hear me?
Yes.
Even if you can't see me, it's great that you can hear me.
I can hear you. Mark is nodding. Naomi, can you hear them? Curl friends, can you tell me if you can hear in the Curl Chat? Can you hear Linda?
Okay. Okay, great.
Okay, so I'm getting some feedback. I'm gonna go ahead and mute my.
Okay. Hear me at this particular.
Yes.
Great, great. Even if you can't.
So there seems to be a brief delay. So Linda, I'm going to ask my question and then I'm just going to stop talking and wait for you. So the question is, in the Self-Made documentary, there was a lot of emphasis on Annie Malone's, who we know to be Addie Monroe, on her complexion as a light-skinned woman. The script writers would have us believe that she was nothing more than a colorist who thought that her light-skinned complexion could, you know, literally buy her success. So who was the real Annie Malone? And why have you decided to honor her legacy? No, we lost Linda. Uh-oh. Maybe she's going to log back in.
Now, Linda Jones has commented in the comment, and then maybe in the comments you'd be able to get some of those answers in text.
Okay, so Linda Jones says, thank you so much, Mark. She says the miniseries portrayal of Madam C.J. Walker and of Annie Malone, Addie Monroe, greatly discredited both women. Even with consideration as a work of historical fiction, the mark was missed here. Interesting. Yeah, I think I would have to agree with that. What do you guys think?
For sure. You know, in May of 19th, 2012, Linda Jones introduced me to this historical figure, Annie Malone, who I had never heard of before. I mean, never. Which, when it comes to Black history, it shouldn't surprise me because so much is swept under the rug or ignored, and our history is buried. So when I first heard of Annie Malone, she instantly became my hero. I started watching everything I could about her, sharing the story, and that was 8 years ago for me, when the first time I ever heard of her, and I was in the business 22 years prior to that. So certainly, I think you know, maybe I should defer to Linda in the comments there to write something to maybe to respond to your question regarding that, because I certainly was a little bit taken back with the movie when I saw how she was portrayed.
Yeah, because the way I would have, like, when I watched it, I felt that, you know, woman who she came across as unsophisticated. She came across as someone who, you know, felt that she was just deserving of the world without necessarily having to work hard for it. She didn't come across as intelligent. She actually came across as a little bit simple, especially in her interactions with men. She also came across as somebody who just had very little respect for the Black community, outside of, you know, what she perceived to be the ultimate version of Black beauty. And so I thought that was problematic. And I was like, if that's truly who this Annie Malone character is, that's awful.
Yes.
That's awful.
Well, I will defer to our experts if Linda gets back, or Linda Jones, but from all reports, Annie Malone was not mulatto. She was not mixed. Yet that's how she was portrayed. So, you know, there was a real, you know, there was a lot of license that had no basis really in historical fact, from what I understand.
Right. Yeah. And that's kind of what I get from it too. And Linda, if you are in the chats, I'm happy to, you know, we're going to roll with this. And if I need to read out the comments, or your comments rather, here on the StreamYard while we figure out the connection, that's fine as well too.
For some reason, I can't see the chats. Is there a way that I can get the chats to come up?
Yes. So if you go to the YouTube channel, the actual public facing link, you should be able to see the chat like that. But I don't think you're able to see it from the back end, unfortunately.
Okay. So how do you do that? Change that?
So I don't think I can change it from here, but what I can do, remember did I send you the public facing link? I think I sent you maybe I haven't. So I can send that over to you now. Through maybe Instagram, but let's see. But yeah, so you should be able to get in there.
Well, even if I can find it, like maybe I can look for it on YouTube and I'll find it that way. Now. Yay! Yeah. There we go.
You found it. It should be Fine Natural Hair Rocks, and it's the live.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay, no problem. So maybe what we'll do while we're waiting for, Linda's back in the chat. She says, stories that represent African-American history, culture, or our experiences are hard enough to take with no embellishments. What then was the need to manufacture distortions of the facts? Exactly. And so it's those distortions of the facts that I've noticed just in my own studies, you know, studying anti-Black racism and the discrimination that is continuously plaguing our community. Is that distortion of the facts that seems to be this narrative that everyone wants to put on our people, whether it's through Hollywood, whether it's through the news, whether it's through leadership. It's just the same story over and over and over again that Black people just can't get their stuff together. So Linda, I wonder, like if you can give us kind of like a background, like why did you choose to honor her legacy, and what was it that you told the scriptwriters before they created Self-Made about Annie Malone, that, you know, the things that you told that kind of found their way into the movie, and then the things that you told that for whatever reason they were just completely chopped out? Because my understanding of what went down behind, and, you know, any of our panelists, please correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that it was a documentary style movie. So it presents like a documentary, but it's actually a mini movie series. Am I correct?
You're correct. So some of the language,
that was like used a limited series.
Yeah, some of the language was used as based on the life of. So, you know, it wasn't actually the life of. Mm-hmm. It was a story based on the life of, and so that allowed for license and liberties and the inaccuracies to flow through there. Mm-hmm. And that's sort of how it was, you know, done. But you know, but apparent to all, and especially those again of our other esteemed panels who have the history. I see Linda's back there.
Linda,
I keep trying.
Like a good connection.
Yay!
Can you hear? I tried again in a totally different location. Hopefully it's going to work.
Amazing.
This
Lighting is totally different, but I'm hoping that you can hear me at least.
Curl Chat, can you let us know
He's
in the
shaking
chat
his
if
head.
you can hear? Yes, I can hear you, Linda. And I
Wonderful,
think Mark.
wonderful. Hello to everybody. I'm sorry for the difficulties, but the information that I'm getting piece by piece has been wonderful. It's delightful to hear that both of you were able to be in the production, which I'm sure was thrilling to watch all the things that were going on. Unfortunately, I'm a little bit disappointed with how things turned out. And it seems like a good portion of America was in that the portrayal of Annie Malone was not what it needed to be, because these are two historical figures that contributed not just to a locality, but to the United States and the world in an international framework. And that really is what needed to be shared, because these were great women, and they didn't let any kind of dispute between them stop them from going forward, even in that time frame. And to me, that is so large. When you look at the early 1900s, when lynchings were going on, when covenants were established to keep people of color from moving into certain places, when there were very, very limited employment opportunities for people in this big migration that was going on across the country from south to north and other places. You look at all the things that were trying to restrict them and restrict access. And here you have two women who are interested in uplifting not just themselves, but other women, and giving them an opportunity to see themselves as valuable and beautiful, and giving them not just an uplifting idea about this, but gave them tools to make it happen, and encourage them to be entrepreneurs, and encourage them to buy houses, encourage them despite all the things that were going on. A lot of people don't realize that Annie Malone was one who built a building from the ground up here in St. Louis in the middle of a pandemic of the flu.
Wow.
She opened a building that was not just a school, but a manufacturing company that had all of what she needed in the St. Louis community a week after World War I ended. There were so many unusual things that Annie Malone was able to do and inspire other people to do. I was very saddened by the fact that we have African-American writer, showrunner, book title, and we choose. There was a concerted effort made to tell a stereotypic story about fighting conflict that was manufactured more than told. And it was represented as something that was true. Yes, it was based on, but it was also billed as what was true about Madam C.J. Walker's story. So you have a lot of people who don't know, didn't grow up hearing, or didn't know about Annie Malone or Madam C.J. Walker for that matter, learning something that's cemented in their brains that's not true.
That's so saddening, because that story hit the masses in a way that the history has not. That's awful.
Absolutely.
Mark,
Absolutely.
how did you feel? How are you feeling right now, hearing of like the inaccuracies that, you know, Ms. Linda Nance is she's revealing it? How do you feel about that? Uh-oh. Hold on, Mark. Sorry, I can't hear you. Go ahead.
So as Linda said, you know, you hear it. If you've, as some, I'm reading in some of the comments, people never heard of Annie Malone, some people before. I had the pleasure of being instructed about Annie Malone 8 years ago. However, when I watched the movie, not having complete information myself, I asked myself, did they not tell me something? I didn't know Annie Malone was like this. And how would I have the wherewithal? You can't know what you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So until Linda and others started reaching out and saying, hey, you know what, this portrayal was completely inaccurate. And then somebody sets the historical record straight. Now you can recalibrate your thinking. But if you don't have that, and that's why if we don't have these discussions, and thank you so much for facilitating this, then truth will get buried, and the historical inaccuracies will. And so I felt like I couldn't believe it. Really, I said, was Annie Malone really like that? And so it sowed seeds of doubt in my mind. And this again, this is the lady who was my hero. I mean, I hope others can tell her greatness. I mean, talk about her buildings and so on. You really have to. That sentence doesn't describe the magnitude of what this lady accomplished. And again, I don't want to tell the story because there's better people here to tell it for me. But at some point tonight, I hope we hear about her 75,000 reps and all of these other things in her manufacturing facility in greater detail, because I think it needs to be told. I know we're talking about this movie, but she's integral to it, and she was the blueprint for the others coming through.
Naomi,
Yes.
I mean,
I frequently,
yeah.
I frequently say that Annie Malone was the pioneer of the hair care industry, in that she was the first to blaze that trail, cutting down trees, picking up rocks, and making a way for other hair care people. There were always people who did hair. People beautified themselves in all kinds of ways. But previous to Annie Malone, people were still using goose grease and fat and lard and lye to try to control their locks.
Mm-hmm.
And Annie Malone experimented from a early period when she was a child with the cleaning of hair, the application of different salves that she concocted from her experimentation with scalp treatments and hair growers, and what became very successful at helping relatives of hers and friends and neighbors of hers to grow their hair back, or to heal some scalp difficulties that may have been. And it continued, even though her sister, who helped to raise her because she was orphaned, suggested she find some other way to make a living. Annie Malone was very, very focused on helping women, uplifting, like I said, teaching what she taught and what she learned herself. But she was very interested in helping people uplift themselves in general. She taught folks how to walk, talk, keep books, apply products, have a self-esteem for themselves. It was an industry that allowed women who didn't have a partner necessarily to make a living for themselves. She taught them how to increase the value of race women, is what she called it very often. It was people of color that she was interested in uplifting, and not their income, but uplifting their attitudes toward things. There were 5 different business expansions that she had. She started the business in 1900 in Lovejoy, Illinois, came to St. Louis in 1902, had 2 different buildings before she built the building in the Ville, which is the only place people of color could buy property at that particular time. And then after a tumultuous divorce later on in 1930, she moved to Chicago, bought 4 mansions in a row, and started the business all over again. So she was a woman who reinvented herself and constantly kept that uplift for women.
Wow. And the thing that, we're all kind of here shaking our heads, and I'm getting emotional because in the movie, they would have you believe that like she didn't want to help anybody, and she was stolen from, and like she was just like this poor victim who's just forever in one bad circumstance to the next. Like, that is so awful.
Annie Malone was a very kind-hearted, very spiritual, very soft-spoken person. And in 1927, in fact, when she was not even in the United States, I don't believe, There was a horrible tornado in St. Louis, Missouri that tore up the north side of the city. And Annie Malone opened the doors of the poor old college, which, by the way, an idea of a 100-seat auditorium. Mm-hmm. It had also in that building classrooms, dormitories, a hotel, 2 emergency rooms, a sewing room, a cafeteria, a billiard, ice parlor, a gym. She had so many things that just didn't take care of the school that she built, because she was the first person who decided to go on a large scale to train agents to sell her products and move her products and teach people. And she had about 32 different schools throughout the country. She had stations, supply stations where her products could be easily moved about the country. Mm-hmm. She was a very astute businesswoman, trying to attend to the needs of her agents. And she also paid a sick benefit when she did that.
Oh my gosh.
She did. She was an entrepreneur and employer. She employed about 170 people in that building in the Ville. She was one of the largest employers at that particular time, and cared about what happened with her agents all over the world. Before there was a Mary Kay, that was an Annie Malone.
Wow, that's that. Yeah. Like Marcus clapping his hands, like that deserves a clap for sure. That's amazing. And we have so many entrepreneurs, we have so many business people right here. Some of the what you guys might know, our esteemed panelists, many of the Crow friends, as well as the people who watch Find Natural Hair Rocks, there are other women who also have their own natural hair care brands. They have their own, small businesses. We've got nurses. We've got an individual who does bonnets, just Black excellence all over. And this kind of makes this kind of blends into a question for Samantha. Samantha, how are you feeling after hearing, Linda's thoughts on the truth, like Linda's revelation? Like, what is going through your mind, Samantha?
Relief. It's relief.
Yeah. Relief. Because you're as a hairstylist, like, you're an entrepreneur, you're a business owner. And so imagine if that story, like I'm getting mad thinking if that story could have happened to any one of us. Like there's so many Black women right here in this chat, and this can happen to any one of us, where your legacy is just completely demolished. And like, that's, I'm literally like beside myself with words right now.
But anyone that knows the community and anyone that's connected to the community would actually question what went on in the movie. You'd question it because, like I said, it was a lot of mess. It was very messy. It was messy.
Yeah.
So Linda has clarified a lot of that for a lot of people. So it's relief. I feel relieved.
You keep talking about the messiness, and you know what? Like, I want us to completely unpack all of it.
Well, okay, so it was messy because some of the stuff that was in the movie goes on in our community. We all know this. It goes on in the community, and it goes on today. Like a lot of the, can I say dysfunction that was in the movie, it goes on today. But I don't think that should have been, it shouldn't have played the biggest part of the movie, and that's what it did. It played a big part in the movie, and it didn't. The movie should have talked about, emphasized on the fact that these women served the Black community when no one else was doing it. So, and that's what I mean. It was messy, and it was messy for no reason, for no reason, really.
Yeah.
I think that the trauma and drama that was in the movie was placed there to be an engine to drive the story or to make it interesting. I personally feel that Black history is dramatic and traumatic all on its own. There are definitely villains when you tell the truth. There are definitely ugly parts of the story when you tell the truth. And believe me, when these women, both Madam C.J. Walker and Annie Malone, had to fight sexism, racism, every kind of ism you can think of at that particular point, that's real enough. We really don't have to invent anything. Colorism, it was dealt with, and each of those women uplifted whoever they had to come to them and want to be able to become agents of theirs and sell their products. They were interested in the uplift of women. Both of those ladies belonged to an organization called the National Association of Colored Women's Clubs. And their motto was lifting as we climb. And both of those ladies did exactly that. Their whatever kind of conflict they had did not deter them from trying to instill that same motto in them. Annie Malone, as you know, had one of her favorite charities as the Children's Home. She gave more than 20 years of her life to that endeavor. She donated property, she donated time, she donated money to the upkeep of that, and it's alive today. And the parade is in her honor. And it provides shelter to children 24/7, 365 since 1888. Not too many people, not too many places in the world can say the light is on every day, all day, 365 for children who don't have.
Amen.
And that's what happened with the Annie Malone Children and Family Service Center. So much so that they named it in her honor and continue it to this day. She helped to establish maternity ward for women of color in one of the white hospitals here in St. Louis. She helped people in music. She helped people in aviation. She was very, very interested in making sure that people thrive. The excellence of people was described. Annie Malone sent people all over the country to record the Black excellence that she found. And she showed it in movie theaters, she showed it at churches, she showed it at social settings and social clubs so that people could see you have excellence all around you, and it's Black people that are doing it. Wow. She was very invested in that. She put her money into positive things, and she asked people all over the country when she'd go and talk to graduating classes. She traveled all over the country, all over the world, trying to bring new product information, new ideas to people of color. And she told people, she warned people in graduations in 1934. She warned a graduating class in Baltimore that if you are not careful, this industry will be sucked up by white people.
And it is.
In 1934, she said that.
Wow. She
said that some of the different stipulations for high school or 8th grade education, certification from different colleges was aimed at reducing the number of Black people in the business. So be careful. She warned of that even before it became the norm.
Wow.
She was targeted in some ways. I really do believe.
Sounds so.
Such a visionary. You know, I'm seeing some comments coming in, and I want to make sure that the Curlfriend crew has an opportunity to you know, have their voices heard, because this panel, we don't have you guys here every day. You know, Linda Jones, for those of you who don't know who Linda Jones is, Linda Jones and Linda Nance, I hope I'm being accurate here, but Linda Jones is the vice president of the Annie Malone Historical Society in St. Louis, not St. Louis, St. Louis. So if you guys
she is in Linda Jones is in Indiana.
Oh, okay. So you and Linda Jones, are you running it? Are you running the Historical Society together across countries? Like how does that work?
We are in conversation with each other quite a bit. We meet each other in different places. We had the honor of presenting to 2 different groups of the Daughters of the American Revolution, one in Peoria, Illinois, and one here in Fenton, Missouri. We have exhibits that go to different places in the country. We were in Atlanta in August and had a book signing there. We have a book that Annie Malone published shortly after she opened the building in 1918 in the Ville, where she took pictures of that beautiful building that I described to you. And it was called Poirot in Pictures. Linda Jones and I have reproduced that book that was previously Poirot in Pictures. And we're using it as a way to raise money so that we can move from a website to an actual building where we can establish an Annie Malone museum and do some educational programs that do exactly what she did, which is to become an asset to the community. So that book is to give people an idea of what it was that she started, that she amassed at that very early time in 1918, and give them an idea of the breadth of the magnitude of her empire, because it was an empire that she Mark. She had 7 agents in her time, and they were all over the world: Africa, Haiti, Nova Scotia, the Philippines. She had agents all over the place.
Okay, can you tell us about the one in Nova Scotia, please? Okay.
I can't give you a lot of information, but possibly Mark could.
So now the dots are so interesting how they connect. Now, Samantha and I go back 30 years as well. Samantha really is our curator in Nova Scotia with the Black Beauty Cultural Association. So I used to sell to a customer. Her name was Barbara Bowen, Mrs. B. She was an older stylist. And Barbara would mention to me about these Poirot products, that there was these Poirot products. And Samantha, how old is Barbara now? She's
gosh, she's the last living gosh, she is the last living protege of Viola Desmond.
Right.
And she must be almost 90 if she's not 90. Yeah, I'm not sure.
I would think so. I think she's in her 90s for sure. Now, so and the dots are interesting because we know that both Annie Malone and Madame C.J. Walker started schools, beauty colleges. Now, I'm going to turn this over to Samantha because Viola Desmond, for some of those, most of us Canadians understand that she's the first Black woman on the Canadian $10 bill, but she was also a hairdresser. And Samantha, with your permission, Lavinia, can we unpack that a little bit with that connection to Nova Scotia and Viola and Madame C.J. Walker and this whole movement? Samantha, can I get you to elaborate on that a little bit? Because I love this part actually.
Well, I'm not now. See, I'm actually still doing the history now, and I like this. I love history. So, in filling in the blanks, I have had a conversation with a professor who actually is the chair of the Viola Desmond, the social justice chair, for the Viola Desmond chair at the social justice studies at Cape Breton University. And he said that Viola Desmond did study in New Jersey. And I'm not sure who she studied under in New Jersey. Was there a Poirot school in New Jersey at one time?
I would have to look it up. I don't know that off the top of my head.
I was under the impression she might have studied at Madame C.J. Walker's, one of her schools.
And she might have done that, and I don't know, like whoever it was in New Jersey, and that's what I was told by the professor.
Okay.
Whatever school it was in New Jersey.
And then she came back to Canada and started in Nova Scotia the first Black beauty college.
Mm-hmm.
From that experience.
Yeah, and she also studied in Montreal too.
Okay.
I think one of her first courses was in Montreal. Her first course of study was in Montreal, and she furthered it by studying in the States.
Samantha, believe it or not, some people, they don't know who Viola Desmond is. I don't know if you want to give them a brief rundown.
So Viola Desmond was and is she is on the $10 bill. And one of the reasons why she's gotten on the $10 bill is because she was a fighter. She actually fought what we would call the Jim Crow law here in Nova Scotia back in the 1940s. It was an unwritten law here, but it was a law just the same that Black people weren't allowed to sit with white people in a theater in New Glasgow. And she actually bought a ticket to go in, and she was actually on her way to do business in Cape Breton, and from Halifax. And she was driving from here to Cape Breton, which is about a 4 or 5 hour drive, and a car broke down in New Glasgow. And wanting to kill some time, she decided to take in a movie while her car was being fixed, and she went and bought a ticket, and the tickets for the balcony, which only black people only allowed to sit in the balcony, I think it was 10 cents, and the tickets in the main downstairs were a little bit more. And so she went downstairs to sat, and they told her that she couldn't sit there, and she said that she'd pay the extra amount, and they told her she couldn't pay the extra amount. So she literally sat. She sat down, like she is our Rosa Parks.
Rosa Parks.
So she's the Rosa Parks. That's right. She's the Rosa Parks of Canada.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Linda, it sounds like there's a lot of, connections between these powerful women, Viola Desmond, Rosa Parks, Annie Malone. I mean, my mind is still trying to get around just how powerful she was in that time frame. Like, this woman is opening up factories. She's employing tens of thousands of other women, other Black women, at a time when it's okay to lynch a Black body. That is amazing. Like,
well, the thing that was amazing to me is she didn't hire all those people. She made them independent contractors that made money for themselves. That's even more amazing to me, because what she offered them was an opportunity to have a lifestyle and a living that was above or more, should I say, a washerwoman, or the ability to make more for themselves than a domestic worker at a time, you remember, when most women did not work outside of the home, and no woman of any color, of any view, of any hue could vote. Nobody could vote at that particular time. And Annie Malone was training those ladies. And if you looked at a picture of some of her sales force, it was rather interesting to me, because these ladies had on hats and gloves and handbags and suits and fur collars. They were dressed in a way that most African American women did not dress at that particular time. It demonstrated that these women had something that a lot of other women just didn't have. And that was part of what she was creating in the industry of hair care. This was not something you looked down upon. It's something you looked up to, aspire to, which was an amazing thing. One of the things that I mentioned earlier in her ability to helped the community. Robbins, Illinois, there was, to my understanding, the first African-American airport built by a number of African-American aviators. One of them was John C. Robinson. That airport was not up very long because weather damaged it. High winds, tornado, I don't know which one it was. But Annie Malone said to Mr. Robinson, to Colonel Robinson, you still need to be able to train your aviators, sir. Come and have your ground school in my carriage house in Chicago. So she opened up her carriage house to his cadre of young African-American aviation students. She didn't have to do that, but she wanted to see it continue. The very, very famous Thomas Dorsey, African-American gospel composer, singer. He was considered to be the father of gospel music. Had an ugly tragedy in his life, very early in his life, where he lost both his wife and his firstborn son.
Oh my gosh.
When he was on a trip here in St. Louis, he returned back to Chicago, very devastated. A friend of his took him to the home of Annie Malone, and he penned gospel song, Precious Take My Hand, at her piano.
Wow.
Her home was a refuge in a lot of different ways. Her home was a stop for lots of different people. She invited the cast of a musical at one point to come to her home in Chicago. She was awarded honorary degrees from Howard University, from Wilberforce University, from Kittrell College that no longer exists at this particular point. My point is, her business acumen was not just recognized, it was celebrated. She did so many different things to uplift people in so many different ways. And it didn't come from a mean-spirited woman. It came from a woman who was caring and interested in forward movement.
Linda,
she didn't want to be called madam.
Linda, I keep on hearing everybody talk about this, and yourself especially, talk about this common thread. And I shouldn't be calling you Linda. I'm so rude. Ms. Linda. Miss Linda.
Yeah, I'm fine.
You know, the common thread is that she helped other people. And there are people, you know, she helps other people. And, you know, right here in the Curl Chat, Kamira Jules is one of our, you know, she's a brand. She has a YouTube channel. She helps other people. Leave It to Leva. She's a catering company in New York. Helps other people. All Pro NYC nurse. Her name's Yolandi Latham. She helps other people. You know, there's so many people who help other people. Marva Squires of Afrotique. She helps other people. Do you think? And Annie Malone, she helps so many other people. Madam C.J. Walker, helping other people. Why do we have this narrative that was so strong in the movie that Annie Malone or Addie Monroe, whatever they tried to make it seem like it was a fictional character, we know it was not, and Madam C.J. Walker, why would they pit them against each other like, you know, they always do? What are your thoughts on that? And you know what? Anybody in the channel, like, or in the on our esteemed panelists, like, please weigh in. Like, why, Linda, do you think, Ms. Linda, do you think that they're pitting us against each other? It doesn't seem like it's real. Like, we don't do this all the time the way they make it seem.
It's stereotypical. It sells. The focus was not on truth. The focus was on dollars. The problem for me was that you had 1 million eyes or 50 million eyes, 50 million eyes. You had an opportunity to move something from book to screen, to inform, to educate, to inspire over 50 million people. Yet the dollar was the rule, not the story. And I think that's why that happened. Are there conflicts in our lives? Yes. But nobody died in the instance with Annie Malone. The conflict was not handled in a fashion that was deadly. There was not a conflict that stopped either one of them from amassing millions or teaching hundreds of other women how to amass large amounts of money. There were much larger players involved than just Annie Malone. They didn't take the opportunity to stretch people's imagination and make them wonder how many other millionaires are out there, how many other very wealthy people, very capable people are there among African Americans, among Hispanics, among Asians, among all sorts of different people. There were lots of them. There are lots of them, and there will continue to be them, because Annie Malone was a servant leader, because so many of the people that you just named were servant leaders. You have to be able to have an interest in the people you're engaged with, the people you live with, the people in your community, because you are a part of that community. And more people need to think that way, I think. W.E.B. Du Bois said the same thing. You got to be concerned about the people that are your people, the people that make your community. And our community is our world. And just like right now, when they talk about we're all in this together, we are. We have to act like it.
Absolutely. You know, it's interesting. In the early 90s, I was a direct distributor for Soft Sheen, which was founded by the Gardner family. Black-owned company. Over time, you know, it was sold out. It's owned by L'Oreal now. And we see these things happening. But the director of marketing, who was a good friend of mine back for a number of years, she said to me one time in the meetings, the business development people would come in and say, oh, we've opened up this territory and we've done these many sales and we've done this and done this. And the founder, Mr. Gardner himself, used to say, how many jobs have you created? And that was the mentality of those that pioneered and owned this industry for time. And unfortunately, that servant leader is disappearing from the scene as the corporations take over our enterprises and so on and so forth. So I just thought that was interesting, Linda, that you would bring that up.
And Miss Linda, you brought up something that was, I think, very interesting. As well, you brought up a ton of stuff that was interesting. Everything you said was interesting, but something that really sticks out to me is just the philanthropy. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but the giving back. Sure. I mean, I'm looking at the entire chat, and every single person who's in there has given back in some way. And so, it's just the part that is sitting with me it's not sitting with me well is this conversation about, you know, Madam C.J. Walker built her company off the back of Annie Malone. How do you feel about that narrative in the story that she stole her ingredient, her secret sauce? How do you feel about that? Is that true based on what you understand?
I have neither person to ask to have information from the horse's mouth. I can only put together things that I have read. And I'm not a relative of Miss Turnbow, so nobody had records that they gave to me. I can tell you that there was something that happened between those two ladies. And as a result of it, Annie Malone's behavior changed significantly. And I can tell you in which way. Miss Walker went to Denver, and she went there and was an agent of Poro system. She was there and was supposed to be selling product for the Annie Malone company, Poro. At one point, that changed. She married and started to sell a product of her own. She started to mix a product of her own. I don't know whether she was still employed as a Poro agent at that point or not, but Annie Malone started to publish things in the paper in Denver and in the St. Louis paper that said, beware of imitators. She sought at that particular point in 1906, I do believe, a trademark to make sure nobody else would take her product. She got that trademark in 1906 or 1907. I don't remember the exact one, but it changed her advertising, and it basically said, beware of imitators. She trained lots of people, and sometimes those people would take her training and then go and do other things on their own. Annie Malone had many times when she sued people for incorrectly using her products. She did that many times, not just at one point. And to my knowledge, she never had a suit against Madam C.J. Walker. I don't know what that was about either, but I know she also got a patent on a seal that she put on her product to say, this is a Poro product. And if it doesn't have the seal, it's not my product. So it changed the way she did some advertising. And it changed the way she represented her company to the public. Did it change her relationship with Madam C.J. Walker? I can't tell you that. I can tell you what I see in print, and those are the things that I know. I also know that it didn't stop Madam C.J. Walker. It didn't stop Annie Malone. And both of those ladies kept doing wonderful things for lots of women. And that's what I choose to focus on. Other people can focus on something else, but I know the reality is they did some wonderful things. They trained some wonderful people. They made opportunities, not just for themselves. And that's such a big thing for me. Yeah. When you train 75,000 women, or when Miss Walker trains 50 and more thousands of women, you're doing something good. So the minutia of what they fought about wasn't even big enough for them to fight about. Wow. Not in public. They wouldn't do it.
Exactly.
They wouldn't do it. Was she the very first African-American female millionaire? No, she wasn't. Neither was Annie Malone. Mary Ellen Pleasant was the very first one, to my knowledge. She had millions amassed in the 1890s. Wow. So to say that either one of them were, no, they weren't. Was she the first one in hair care? Quite possibly. Can I prove it? Absolutely. No, I can't. No, I can't. So am I going to talk about the wonderful things both women did? Yes, ma'am, I am, because that's the important thing. And that's the part of that movie that is really, really disappointing. They dishonored both women. For her to say that I took it, okay, that was degrading. I thought it was degrading to Madam C.J. Walker's memory. And I don't know why that's all right with anybody. I just don't.
Yeah. Yeah. The thing, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, please, Naomi.
Yeah, the thing, yeah, what bothers me, listen, just hearing you speak and giving all of this information is, as a young businesswoman, as a young Black businesswoman, we grow up with this idea of the white man in the suit. That is the businessman. Those are the people who have knowledge about business. Those are the people that, created business and created what you know about customers and what you know about financial planning and what you know about building business companies. When you look at reality shows, that's who you see, men in suits, white men in suits. Those are the people who play these roles in reality TV. And a lot of the times Black women are subjected to, very degrading, fighting, sort of aggression, kind of these roles of just conflict all the time. And what bothers me is that, like you had said, this was such an incredible opportunity for someone like me, who is building their own business as a young businesswoman, who actually has taken a lot of models from Annie Malone and Madam C.J. Walker. Social selling. We see social selling all the time today. We have an affiliate program with Beauty Club Outlet where we give cash back to people who promote our website. But you see that all the time. Affiliate programs, commission sales representatives. And to do it on that large of a scale, when we think $1 million today, that's not $1 million in the 1900s. That is a lot of money for those women to have made. And so this was an opportunity to show Black business womanhood in an unprecedented, incredible way. And not even just the business womanhood of it, but the competitiveness of it. They were competitors. Competition is a real thing in business. You have other people who are doing similar things that you are selling similar things that you do, and there are tactics that you use to become the best seller or whatever, you know? And so instead of showing this beautiful representation of Black business womanhood in a time of, like Miss Linda had said, trauma, drama, hardship, out of the imagination, psychological barriers, financial barriers, all of the barriers and barriers we face today, but just, you know, packaged differently and brought to us differently, you know, much more covert rather than overt that they faced. But, you know, that was an opportunity to show young Black women everywhere. Look at these business women who did this thing in the early 1900s, right? But instead, we got fed with a narrative of conflict. And, you know, even with the whole colorism narrative, colorism is a real thing. But again, to replace the powerful narrative of Black business womanhood with a made up, you know, and it's one thing if it was really the story that really, you know, this is the foundation of the story. But as you had pointed out, as well as the way they portrayed Annie Malone, they didn't show her doing any business transactions, not one time. They didn't show her discussing her business model at all. They showed her maybe one time, and they did show Madam in that capacity, but again, very focused on her downfall, very focused on the relationship, very focused, and all these things again are real. But to overshadow the business with those things just is so disappointing for me, because I could have used I used the story, I was inspired by the story from my father. And when we created this model of social selling, it was based off of their model, right? And everything that they had done. And then to know that nobody else was able to receive that story because of the narrative that was put forth is just heartbreaking, because I know how much it inspired me and still inspires me in my business as a businesswoman, as a Black businesswoman. It's super upsetting for sure.
Naomi, I'm with you on that. I mean, even my own journey towards a lawyer, like I would not have been able to be a lawyer today had it have not been for those representations of strong Black people, strong Black women, strong Black entrepreneurs. I was raised by, you know, 3 strong Black aunts, women, and my mother, who's a strong Black woman, and my grandmother, may she rest in peace, very, very strong women, and they helped each other. We recently,
yes,
you know, not to get too far off of a topic, but we recently lost the last member of our generation, of the grandparent generation. 11 brothers and sisters, we lost them. You know, one by one over the years, and each and every one of them, when they immigrated from St. Vincent and the Grenadines during their timing, the early 1900s or mid 1900s, they immigrated over from St. Vincent in that kind of a flight, in that plane over to, you know, the Americas, into England. They landed and then they pulled everyone in with them. Like they pulled people in. They said, you know, I'm not the only one who's here in this land of opportunity. I'm not the only one leaving the islands to make something of myself. My Auntie Jenny, she pulled people in. My grandmother, Edina Latham, she pulled people in. And so, you know, even my father, entrepreneurship, he's building up the island. Like all of the examples around me, looking to my in-laws, you know, they are the educators in 400 years of being ripped from the continent. That is resilience. And so
exactly.
it burns my spirit. Like Naomi, you hit a grain there. Like it burns my spirit to hear that, you know, the narrative out there of us is just nothing but trauma. How can that be?
Right. Right. Yeah, it's true. Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's just, and the thing is as well, it's like, our trauma is part of our story, 100%. But I think we also are, obviously we know we're so much more than that, but it is so powerful when we are actually able to show that and express that, and it's so interesting, even with the conversation with beauty industry and beauty supply stores, there's this big movement towards supporting Black female owned stores and Black owned brands and all these things. And it's so interesting. Ms. Linda, when you said that comment about Annie saying that at that lecture, at that speech to that graduating class, how the foresight that she had to say, this industry is very profitable. We spend a lot of income in this industry, our dollars, and we still do. Guys, listen to the statistic. The Black population of the United States is 12% of the population, but it's 35% of the total hair care sales. 35%. She understood, right, how much wealth we could build for our community and how much wealth could be taken away from our community. And I think that because corporations don't want you to know that, they don't want you to know that there's this incredible monopoly on the industry that has, been tried to be taken away from us. But we are so unique, and our products are unique to us, which means that the people who sell them are unique as well. And so I think, for her to say that and to know, guys, this is something we're building, but I'm building all of these colleges. I'm teaching you, I'm training you so that you're able to replicate this and you're able to pass it down and you're able to give it to your children and your children's children. These are the things that we're building. We have to start rewriting our story away. We can't wait. I was watching a documentary of Michelle Obama recently, and she said, you cannot wait for the world to validate you, for you to be seen. You have to just be, you have to just create, you have to just step out into the light and into the limelight and actually just run as if you're not held back by this trauma that they're telling you need to be held back by. And so, yeah, it's just, that's so powerful that she had the foresight to know that that was going to happen if we weren't careful with the way that we took care of the industry and of our dollars.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Go on.
No, go ahead, Linda, please.
There's so much about Annie Malone in that she overcame so many things. She had 2 ugly marriages, and one was devastating to her. In 1927, she divorced Mr. Malone, who asked for the state to take the poor old college into receivership. And he felt he needed to have half of the business. Although he didn't come into the picture until 1914, he felt in 1927 he should have half the business. And it was a really open, public, ugly divorce. Mary McLeod Bethune got involved in it. There were papers all over the country that talked about it. It was extremely embarrassing. And Annie Malone finally settled out of court for $200,000 and several pieces of property and told him to go away.
Yeah.
And he ended up not in a very good situation, but she left St. Louis and started her business again in Chicago, but it was never quite the same as it was in St. Louis. Although she was able to do a lot of things, she got in a lot of tax trouble. And in the mid-50s, the United States seized her properties and sold off many things. There are lots of questions I still have about that, and I'm researching more about that. But even then, she continued to hold graduations and train people. I think the last open building, college that she had was purchased by someone in the late 80s, if not mistaken. But her legacy is her legacy nonetheless. And it shows you lots of things. It shows you that with that competition, it can be healthy and it can be damaging. She had lots of lawsuits that she had to deal with. And that was difficult. She survived the market crash, the stock market crash, but she had a lot of difficulty nonetheless. But it didn't stop her from giving. A lot of people thought that she was I think the newspaper called her a giving freak because she kept doing it. They accused her of having poor business practices, but I don't necessarily agree with that. You can't build an empire like that with poor business practices. There were some things that went wrong, yes, but it didn't change her desire to uplift people or encourage them to do excellent things. It never changed that for her.
Wow.
I'm just like letting that sit with me. It seems like for Miss Linda and Mark and Naomi, it seems like we lost Miss Samantha. I don't know what happened. Her on my phone to see if we can get her back. But so many gems. I appreciate you, Miss Linda. I really do, for dedicating so much of your time to finding the truth, number one, and for putting the truth out there, because this is self-giving. But I wonder, and I think I've seen a couple, I think some other people might wonder as well too, like, what is the driving passion within Miss Linda that has been kind of like motivating you with this type of work and kind of getting Ms. Annie Malone's story out there?
I have to share with you that Linda Jones is an excellent researcher and has contributed so much to the narrative that I'm able to give. And we frequently get on the telephone and talk over each other, trying to share the new pieces of information that we found, because we're each trying to find as much as we possibly can about this organization. And Linda Jones and I met because we found in each other Annie Malone history crazy people. We would talk for lengths of time about what we found, how we found it, what it means to us to have learned about this particular person. I got started doing this because I was very unsatisfied with the amount of information that was available about Annie Malone. I was writing an article for the Missouri History Museum about Annie Malone. And when I went to our public library, our main library in the city, there was very little information about her. It was basically the same information that I had gotten when I read something else. It's just a mill of the same statements over and over again. It's like, I know there's more to this lady. She's been in this city for this long. She's done all these other things. Why isn't it written down? And then I managed to scrape together enough to write that article. There were some things I scraped up that weren't actually facts, I learned. But it made me rather angry that this woman has done all these different things and the world doesn't know. They don't know that she's a philanthropist to the extent that she is. They don't know that she's a community developer and was helpful in getting roads in the Ville community or getting educational things available to people in the community. They don't know that. They don't know that she gave 2 scholarships to every land grant African-American college in the South at one point. Wow. They don't know that she's helped to do this hospital. They don't know all these different things, and that bothered me. So let's put them together in one place, and that's why we started the website. I didn't think we could write a book. Linda Jones wants to write a book. She keeps telling we need to put that out there. But the website was something that everybody could have access to a library. They didn't have to buy the book. So that's what we put out there first. We put together the different artifacts that we were able to find or collect or people donated to us. And we've been to New Orleans. We've been to Atlanta. We've been to Peoria, as I said before. We've done lots of other places and go to schools. We go to nursing homes. We go to anybody who listened to us about Annie Malone, we'll go to. Linda has been very, very good at talking to young people. And I think the youngest group of people we ever talked to was a greatest second graders who were interested in Annie Malone. So we went to talk to them. We created a a bingo game that made it happen for them, and they were interactive in that particular process. We've talked to junior high school students and high school students. So our point is that anywhere we can get somebody interested in Annie Malone, we want to talk to them. And we want to interest people in Annie Malone. And because I really do believe, just as you spoke about, Naomi, if more people could know about her success earlier and use her as a role model, to use her as a person to think about some of the things that she started thinking about, boy, we end up with what entrepreneurial spirits we could wake up in people. Young boys, young girls, doesn't matter. I just think the more people who know about her story and know about her service, more about her kind of leadership, will change people. I really do believe that. And that's what got me interested in. I decided I was not going to be a person who was silent about what I learned. I'm excited about it. I get excited about it. My son says, don't turn her on. She doesn't turn off very well when she starts talking about Annie Malone. And I think that's pretty true.
Ms. Linda, are the products
I think that's pretty true.
Sorry, I didn't mean
I did hear you.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you. Ms. Linda, are the products that Annie Malone and Madam C.J. Walker created, are those products still available today? Are those entities still around for us to support if we wanted to? I've
learned that there are products from Madam C.J. Walker that have just been revived, so to speak. That company has changed some names, but it's begin to start up again. There are not products, to my knowledge, for Annie Malone at this particular point.
Okay. So what happened to all those factories and those huge, like large institutions? What happened?
Unfortunately, the large complex in the Ville neighborhood in St. Louis was demolished, and now there is a senior citizen home in its place. There are some buildings across the country, and I have not located all of them. That is something that I would like to do. But I have not located other buildings, many other buildings that used to house her school or schools. I know that for a time before the building was demolished, when she went away to Chicago, the Poro building here in St. Louis was used as a law school. That might interest you. It was a law school for people of color because the University of Missouri here in St. Louis would not allow people of color to attend their school. The federal government stepped in and said, can't do that. You have to allow them to go to school. And the University of Missouri in St. Louis said, we don't care, we're not doing it. So what they did is they contacted the Lincoln University in Jefferson City, Missouri, that was started by Civil War soldiers of African-American descent. And they ended up locating a law school, the Lincoln Law School, in the Poro College building for a time until the University of Missouri decided it was too costly to continue that, and they just enveloped them into their regular schooling. But it's been used for lots of different things before it was demolished. It's unfortunate that that was so, because that was a magnificent building. In newspapers across the country, it was billed as the most magnificent thing a person of color had done. Wow. It was something else.
Wow.
It was absolutely something.
Mark and Naomi.
Amazing.
I know we had some prepared questions for the girlfriends and, to chat, but this conversation, it just took its own life, and I love that.
Right.
I did promise Ms. Linda, Mark, Naomi, I did promise members of the Curlfriend crew that there would be an opportunity tonight to come here and, ask questions. I see there's quite a few of us. I just want to put it out there, or a feeler about, right now we're an hour and 40 minutes in. What is your feeling, my esteemed panelist members, about the time moving forward? How much time do you feel you have? And I guess we'll go with the shortest one to kind of be fair to everybody who might want to, connect with you guys as well.
Right. The mind can only absorb
We're talking
what
about
the teeth can endure. I'm
good.
good.
I'm okay.
You're good? Everyone's good?
Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic.
I'm good. Yeah, we're talking about Annie Malone. I'm fine.
So are we okay if I perhaps invite somebody in to come and maybe join in the conversation? Okay. So what I'm going to do is I have a link. I'm going to drop it into the comment box. Kamira Jules, she's been so kind as to be our moderator tonight. And so together we're going to see what we can do to get people to start the conversation with some of our girlfriends to see who wants to ask questions. So I'm trying to put the link inside of the chat box. How that works is you click the link and then you'll be in a waiting room. And so I will let you in and we'll kind of go from there. But, I'm being filled up from the top of my head to the bottom of my toes. Like, I had so many aspirations in my life to get into the hair care industry and to really try to to follow in the footsteps of people like Annie Malone and Ms. Linda. You are giving myself, and I see Naomi's big bright smile. You're giving us young some hope that there's that vibe out there that you can do this, in the sense of encouraging other people and not having to be afraid that because you're giving to someone else, that's somehow, some way taken away from you. So Ms. Linda, thank you so much.
I see Samantha.
Give some of that credit to Ms. Jones.
We've got Kamira who just joined. Hi,
guys.
Kamira.
Yeah.
I just want to say, hey Naomi, Mark.
Hi, Kamira. Good.
So I just want to say, hi Linda. I'm so excited to be a part of this. Honestly, I'm like,
hi.
When Lavinia reached out to me, okay, so I'll tell you a little bit about myself. So Lavinia and I, we live in Canada. We live in the Toronto area, as well as Mark and Naomi. And I find that us Canadians are the minority when it comes to this thing with hair and social media and everything. So I actually have a YouTube page. I'm on Instagram and all the other social medias. And I first started with when I went natural. So I was, when I was younger, my hair was relaxed. And then back in 2013, I'd start, or maybe a little bit earlier, maybe 2011, I kind of started learning about natural hair and the effects of relaxers and things like that. So I had decided that I was going to transition and then go natural. So I finally went natural back in 2013, and I've been natural since. And then I decided to document my journey on Instagram. And then that actually kind of grew into the YouTube. So I've been on YouTube for quite some years. I just wasn't consistent with it. I started again actually last year, January. And that kind of began. So I have a few natural hair videos. So I actually have a natural hair playlist on my channel. But more recently, I've been doing a lot of protective styling, wearing wigs and things like that. So I do like wig reviews. And my channel is really about hair, beauty, wig reviews. So I'm actually planning on getting back into the natural hair. I had my hair grew the longest that it had ever grown after going natural. It was actually bra strap length. And then back in September, due to some health issues that had affected my hair, I had to cut it again. So as you guys can see, it's short. So I actually want to reintroduce doing natural hair and things like that on my channel. And so Lavinia and I connected, and we plan on doing some collaborations and things like that. But I actually wanted to come on and say that I am so proud of you. When I heard about this earlier today, I was so excited. I'm like, oh my gosh. And at first I was like, okay, maybe I'll join. Maybe I'll, just do the audio. But I'm like, nope, you know what? This is a special moment. I'm going to get the makeup done, look nice. So I'm really proud of you. I feel like I'm in school today. Like, honestly, I've learned so much today. It's unbelievable. To be honest with you, I didn't really watch the whole series. I kind of started watching it and then I, didn't really have time to continue watching. So I'm actually glad that I'm here today to hear the truth instead of, because I heard a lot of mixed reviews about it. And so I had planned on watching it at some point. And then Lavinia came to me today and I was like, oh, I got to be part of this. So this is absolutely awesome. This is a great panel. Great job, Lavinia.
Thank you so much, Mira. And Linda,
Thank you, Lavinia.
Oh, thank you. I have to thank Mark because, Mark was the one who was like, well, Lavinia, do you know Ms. Linda Nance and Samantha Dixon? And I was like, no, Mark, I don't. So Mark, if it wasn't for Mark Adams, we would not be connected today. And I just feel so blessed, so very, very blessed to have crossed paths with you, Linda, Ms. Linda. I'm so happy that you were able to join us.
I'm thankful to all of you. It was a pleasure when I spoke with Mr. Adams much earlier and learned about their involvement in the movie, his involvement in so many different things in terms of the history that I can't wait that he mentioned even more about Haircare in no.
Uh-oh. We seem to be losing connection here. What is going on? Are you guys okay with your connection or is it kind of fragmented as well?
It looks fine on my end.
Yeah, I missed a little bit of the last little bit of what Miss Linda said.
Marva School.
So we have Marva Squires, founder, in here. Ms. Linda, we're not able to.
I was just thanking all of you.
Oh.
Oh, thank you, Ms. Linda. I appreciate the information so much. Like I think I did research before, especially after everything came out and I saw how they had portrayed, because it's interesting where I am in the film, I'm in a scene with Addie Monroe. And in that scene, Madam CJ Walker's house catches on fire, her salon, and then Addie is seen coming and trying to poach her customers, basically. And so when we were filming, I was like, oh, this is two women competing. This is so cool and business, because I'm a businesswoman, so it got me so excited. And then when I saw it, I was just so floored. So thank you so much for just giving me that backstory about Annie, as well as, Madam, and showing that I can take from both of those women, implement the same strategies that they were doing, and not have to follow the narrative of competition and conflict. I've been able to learn so much more about her life, and now I can share that with our clients. I can share that with people that I'm talking to as well. So thank you so much. That was so enlightening. It was great.
Yeah. So given the conversation that we've had and the fact that we do
actually had somebody to
sorry?
Contract.
Go ahead, Ms. Linda.
I think it's
someone share with me.
Oh, she's frozen for me now.
From 1960. And in that contract, it talked about being assigned a specific territory so that there would not be viciousness and bickering in between or between people. That was a part of her built-in business strategy to assign areas to people. And she always encouraged them not to bicker among themselves and to respect each other's customers. That was a part of her business plan,
right?
Her business model.
Which is still a strategy used today.
Well,
100%.
There's a book, often in business, people like to talk about the Red Sea, but there's really the best business practices when you have a blue sea, and the Red Sea sort of signifies the water is all bloody because it's been a battle. Whereas the blue sea, you know, where you can have friendly competition, and you can have, you know, there's enough room for everybody. Samantha, God bless her, her and I, like I said, go back 30 years. I had a salon and a beauty supply. My salon was 4 blocks from her salon, and across the street from another one. And we, to this day, we're the best of friends. We do business together. It doesn't have to be a red sea. It can be a blue sea. That can be friendly competition. You can, you know, my attitude has always been, if I lose a sale, I just say to myself, well, they have to eat as well. There's enough room for us all. And, you know, we don't have to, you know, obviously business is business and it's tough, but it doesn't have to be a red sea.
Ms. Linda, if I could be a little bit, if I can gain some access to your knowledge, based on the social selling and the affiliate marketing that happened without technology, you know, so many of us were trying to do the same thing. You know, Naomi mentioned that she has an affiliate marketing program with a beauty supply outlet. You know, so many of us are doing pretty much the same thing with other more modern natural hair care products. What advice do you have, knowing what you know, about what works in that industry versus what does not work for those who are trying to do the same thing?
Was that question for me, Lavinia?
Yes, Ms. Linda, I'm sorry. So that question is for you, Ms. Linda. Given the information that you've seen and
I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
I'm sorry.
Are you able to hear me? Hello?
I am barely able to hear you. Would you repeat that question?
Sure. So basically, I was saying, you know, with the knowledge that you've accumulated in doing research about Ms. Annie Malone and her social selling and her affiliate marketing without technology, do you kind of have an understanding or maybe some tidbits for us new business entrepreneurs about doing the same thing in the 21st century? Like, what would that look like?
Man, I am amazed at the fact that Annie Malone didn't have what we have at our disposal, and she could accomplish all those things with no Twitter, with no Instagram, with no cell phone. So now that we have all those things, I think it's incredible to think of the kind of happen. And I'm just learning about it because, as I shared with you, Lavinia, I am not a technology kind of person. I love to hear about what it can do, but for me to set it up and make it happen is a little bit hard. But to think that you can have Instagram send thousands of things out to your followers and giving them information about your sale or how to improve the use of a particular product is amazing. The fact that you can have tutorials that have hundreds of people on Zoom or on StreamYard or so many other things gives the distributor, gives the proprietor so many other opportunities that have. She had a order business that helped tremendously, but what you can do with the technology that's available is just amazing. So I'm looking forward to learning more about those things and trying to look at what is going to be available to people, especially after the connected people are forced into because of our home situation right now. As people have to stay at home and find other ways to communicate and to sell and to make themselves known to people across the country, I just think it's going to be so open. It's going to be a great opportunity.
Yeah. And I think, like, even right now with coronavirus, you know, to build on some of the points that you mentioned with this whole COVID-19 and the displacement of Black businesses and the forced move to online interactions, I wonder if we're going to have to lean on, the methods that Ms. Annie Malone and Madame C.J. Walker, those methods that they did, we're going to have to learn to transfer that into the online hemisphere. And so I guess that's going to take some work on our end, but it's
Worked.
Sorry? So
Absolutely.
I'm going to...
They worked.
So they worked, exactly. And I feel like as much as we're in the 21st century technology, sometimes the old school method is the only method. That's the right method. And we're just going to have to learn how to adapt to stay alive, because the news headlines, they don't look good for us. I mean, from a policy perspective, from a human rights discrimination perspective, the people who are suffering the most right now, it's our community. And so we have to figure out a way to help each other. We have to displace this narrative that we don't help each other, that we don't care about each other, that we're ignorant and we're just doomed to like trauma and tragedy. So I am very inspired, and I can tell from the Curlfriend chat. I featured a couple comments so that you, Ms. Linda, and Mark, and Naomi, and Miss Samantha, how valuable your voices are to the community right now. There's, just off the top of my head, there's lawyers in this group. Shout outs to Laura Wilson Lewis of Wilson Lewis Law. Another Black female entrepreneur who consistently reaches back to the community to help other people. And so, we have to get this narrative out there, because I feel like the information that was depicted through that movie, it came through that screen so strong. It came through like it was true. It came through like it was factual, and it was backed by a major corporation. Netflix is huge. And so for people, and to me, I feel that when you put a story like that on such a massive platform, you start reaching the masses. And when you start reaching the masses and you start distorting the truth, that starts to hurt us even more, because it's those distorted truths that tend to inform very micro decision-making in our minds that tend to keep us back as Black people. So what does that look like on the daily? Say one of my favorite companies, shout outs to Monique Rodriguez of Mayel Organics. She always reaches out to the community. She has various ways of informing people on how they can do the same.
Yes.
And so one of the things that she mentioned in passing was that, when we turn around and we feel sorry about that, when we turn around and we see a Black business that has an issue, say, for example, a slow order, or, for example, maybe customer service didn't come through fast enough. The first thing people say, see, that's why I don't play with my money in Black people. I don't have time to do business with Black people this, Black people that. So, Ms. Linda, how are you feeling about that truth that exists right now in our society, that we're so quick to push down the Black community and our businesses, and these truths about these fantastic figures of excellence, Ms. Annie Malone and Madam C.J. Walker? Like, how do we reconcile that so that we can change the narrative?
We're doing it right now.
Yes.
We are challenging the traditional narrative. We're doing it right now.
Right.
You have a group of people. I personally believe that when you talk to a bunch of people and give them truth and give them access to go back up where you got that truth, you have built a walking billboard, and you challenge them to share that information that they just got. You challenge them to verify that information that they just got. And you challenge them to talk about it. Word of mouth is very powerful. Word of mouth can damage me on repair. Word of mouth can insult too. And if I'm encouraged to be positive, guess what I am? I'm positive. If I am encouraged to seek the truth for myself, guess what I will do? I will seek the truth for myself. I will learn what outlets are trustworthy outlets. And I'll share those things with other people. We're doing it right now.
That warms my heart.
100%. That is so true. I I think too, for me as we we all know the supply, right? And we all know the feeling we're in right now. We're talking about this narrative. We're talking about the experiences that we go through in the industry, as entrepreneurs, as we grow and move forward. And I think for us, the word of mouth that Miss is talking about has just changed the way that it functions, right? Back in the 1900s, word of mouth literally meant word of mouth. It was me going to talk to you and telling you about this thing or selling you this thing in person because that was the only way that we could do it. Whereas today, we inspire each other through word of mouth, through online social media platforms, right? But it's still word of mouth. It's still me telling you that I'm putting my validation stamp on this thing and I'm telling you this thing is good, it works, trust me, I've got you, it's going to work well for you, right? And I think with our community, we are moving towards trusting each other. We're moving towards saying, hey, I know for me, for Beauty Club Outlet, the majority of the brands that we carry are created by Black women. Mael Organics, Monique Rodriguez, Talia Wajid, TGM, Christia Donaldson. These women have crafted the products themselves because they couldn't trust the narrative of products that were being given to them by other manufacturers, right? So this whole idea of trust, this whole idea of word of mouth and telling each other, hey guys, let's get it together. I think even with what you had mentioned about, the stereotype around Black businesses, what happens is forget that we are also subject to being victims, but also perpetuants of these stereotypes that we are victims of, right? This idea that you have experience with 2 Black businesses and you have an experience with 10 white-owned businesses, let's just say. If you have a bad experience with a 1 Black business, in your mind, half of all Black businesses you have negative experiences with, but you've only had experiences with 2. Whereas the ratio of other, demographic owned businesses would be very similar. So sometimes we have to be careful that we don't fall into that same trap of grouping together that are owned by Black people or by people of color, and we paint the same brush with all businesses because, especially as a business, we have to do what we need to do to make sure the consumer feels valued. No ifs, ands, or buts. No matter, your demographic, no matter what product, it's your responsibility to make sure that you are offering that level of service to the client to make them valued and appreciated. And actually, with our Beauty Clubber program, we actually just had an affiliate last week. She earned $100 off of her commission. And Ms. Linda, when you were saying giving back to women who can actually use this money to reinvest into themselves, like this whole platform, and actually it was my father and I that we were talking about this, and when you said your son is always saying, don't get her started on Annie Malone, like that's also Mark. Like he is very videos and documentaries, all these things, but the power of it is the give back. And that's what business is. You are meeting a consumer need, and our needs as Black people are very far, wide, and deep, and we have been meeting those needs for ourselves. So for us, the affiliate program is our modern day version of the social selling, and it is an incredible model that has been there, that we look up Annie Malone, see how she did it, and copy it. And so it's there and we're doing it, and it's something that we can all do and continue to just uplift each other as we move forward, for sure.
One of the other
Absolutely, making people accountable is good.
Yes.
Yep.
100%. Raising the standard of the industry, for sure. Yeah. Even Rihanna, what Rihanna has done that a lot of people, you know, sometimes miss in the cosmetics industry, Rihanna came out with Fenty, and what she did, sweet, came out with 50 shade ranges. All other these large cosmetic companies never batted an eye at the number of shade ranges that they were lacking for women of color.
Mhm.
What Rihanna did was she took the standard for the shade ranges available to women and she put it here. And she brought every other company up with her. Very quickly after that, you started seeing big makeup companies, new shade range for women of color, 20 new shade ranges, 15 new shade ranges, right? She raised that standard. And I think for the beauty supply industry, there is a standard that needs to be raised. You know, the same thing Annie Malone was warning about, the same thing that we are talking about. You know, we need to raise that standard the exact same way Rihanna did, the exact same way Annie Malone did. She was tired of using these products that didn't work, and we are in that sort of same era. So it's possible for you to have to just create our own lane and try to move forward and support each other as we do it.
Yep. 100%. 100%.
Yeah.
One of the things, Ms. Linda, one of the things that I wanted to, you know, draw some attention to, it's a conversation that I had with Mr. Mark Adams a while back. And at the time we were discussing some other things related to hair as well. But one of the issues that came up, and it's alive and strong, and you kind of touched on it as well, Ms. Linda, when you mentioned that Ms. Annie Malone, way back when, had said, listen, if we are not careful, we are going to lose our access to our hair care industry. We are the only ones who have this type of hair. And so if we lose access to that, we lose access to our own dollars. And so the conversation that I had with Mark, and that has stuck with me however many months, or maybe it was a year ago, is that our products are being sold in stores that do not belong to our community. They are being sold, and this is no hate to anybody's community. I spread nothing but love to everybody, no matter who you are, what race, color, pink, whatever. But when it comes to Black hair care, that those Black hair care dollars do not belong to the Black business or the Black body. That's a problem. And so when Mark and I were talking about it, you know, it came up that our money, when we go to purchase Black beauty products, we have to go outside of our race. And our money, which is a multi-billion-dollar industry, those billions of dollars are leaving our community every single day. So knowing what you know, Ms. Linda, and the information that you have shared with us about Ms. Annie Malone predicting this, how many decades ago, what can we do to pull that back? Because I think that reality is not just true here in Canada, it's true in the States, it's true worldwide. You can always find an Asian beauty supply store, and that is problematic. My understanding of the issue, at least from a Canadian perspective, and I have to preface this by saying this is not legal advice, but it appears that there is a monopoly on the consumerism and business practices around around the sale of Black beauty products. So that being said, not from a legal perspective, but just from a pulling our power back, how do we do that based on what you know, Ms. Linda? And I apologize, all my questions are always so long-winded, I apologize. But I wonder if you can maybe shed some light on that. Whatever you know is fantastic.
I'm pretty sure my answers are kind of long-winded too, but that is why I am interested in having a component in our building, once we get this, of a financial literacy program, because we as color need to be more intentional about where we place our dollars and why. It's not always that something costs $1 less over here than it does over there. It's what those dollars stand for a lot too. What you do with your dollar or the dollars that I give you is important, or where your product from that I'm buying important. Have to talk about and make people they're thinking about how it is we use our dollars for our community, our product with our dealers than we've done before. So many times people will make a purchase and not be concerned where that item came from. They just want to know that it costs less over here than it does over there. That's a problem for me. And I've been guilty of it too. But I'm trying to change that narrative, not only for myself, but for people that I come in contact with. And yes, when I come in contact with a proprietor that gives me poor service, I have a responsibility to say, or ma'am, I'm going to choose to take my business someplace else because I can't get the satisfaction I need or the quality I need over here. I hope we'll begin to bring up that whole perspective on excellence. Not just for, I have a habit of saying that if I expect you to keep doing the things you're doing to lose customer, I probably won't say a thing to you. But if I have an expectation that you need to know that I'm dissatisfied as a customer, and you need to know that I expect better of you if you're going to have a business in my community, tell you that as a customer. And come back and check to see if you've changed anything. And if you haven't, I will gladly put my dollars someplace else. But I've given you opportunity. I've let you know in my community, I expect some excellence. If to your store, your place of business, whatever it is you're manufacturing, and it's not something that reflects that you care about me as the customer, you buy money. Yeah. I'm not being intentional if I continue to purchase things from you when in fact you don't honor me as a customer. So people have to change the way they think about the use of their dollars. And if I check today and I go someplace else to spend my money, I've taken the money away from the community that I'm living in. I've almost run out of gas times to come back to the community where I live to buy gas because I want that money to go to our school district, or I want that money to go to this particular proprietor. That's my intentional choice. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's rather foolish. I have to. I'll check my gas earlier and get gas, or whatever the choice would be. But it's for people to become. And if we do that, we will see our communities build again. In the Black Wall Street, that money stayed in that community for days. In our communities now, if they stay for an hour or two, it's amazing. I had the opportunity, and I will share this. I had a young man in a mall and asked for dollars to get home. And I promised him I would give him car fare to get home, whatever that was, as long as he allowed me to give him a piece of my mind. He agreed. And I simply told him, do not ever go anywhere where you cannot get back home. Mm. There is nothing in this mall that is important enough for you to be stranded outside your home. And if you really needed some money, go take what's in that bag and return it and get home. And I gave him the money. Was that something I should not have done? Maybe. But I don't think so, because I asked and he did give me permission.
I see that we have a new joiner, Yolandi Latham. Welcome. For those who are wondering, we bear resemblance. She is my aunt, and I welcome her to the show. Thank you so much for
Thank
coming.
you. This has been a wonderful show. I've been awed from beginning to end, and I'm really glad that you were able to put this together, Lavinia, and the panelists. I'm also from Toronto, from Mississauga, so hey, hey, hey.
Hey.
Right. This is just great. I live here in New York right now, and I think Lavinia and I had watched the movie around the same time, and we were just, the story was really great. And my husband actually watched it with me, and it brought up so much conversation about, just looking at how, the competition, and how when you have a business and you're trying to get things done, that how the support system is not always there. And I have my own business. I'm in healthcare. I do consulting and teaching of emergency response
Bless
care,
you.
dementia care, education, things like this. And one of the things that I found very difficult is that when I was going on this journey to begin my business, I had to find out everything for myself. Just as these women had to do way back then, but they were able to, be the trailblazers for their businesses and forge them ahead and find ways to inspire other people.
Mhm.
I have had many discussions with Lavinia about wishing that I had somebody like myself who I could look to as a mentor, who didn't see me as competition, but more as a sister who I want to help you, because I genuinely love to see when I have a Black brother or sister who is doing something well. I'm so happy for them. I love to see other people grow and do big things, because it's inspirational for me that I can do it too. But not all the time we have that support. And that was one of the things that stuck out to me in that movie. And so it's really interesting to hear from all of you some of the things that were actually not brought into the movie. And if I was never a part of this conversation this evening, I wouldn't have gone to look all the way back to understand what the real history is. We would just take the movie and say, okay, well, that was the movie, and that's what we heard about these people, and that's it. So this has just been really great. So thank you to all of you for sharing this evening.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I think
Thank you for what you do.
before you go
Thank
to
you.
love, there's a business. There are actually a lot of people who are there to help you. And what I've learned in terms of asking for help with your business is sometimes we talk about this concept of mentorship, but coaches are also very important. What the difference between a coach and a mentor is that a coach can help you with specific things. They'll be an expert in a specific thing. So, for example, someone who is a financial coach, right, can walk you through the financial aspect of your business. Somebody who is a marketing coach can help you with the marketing aspect of your business. And you can find these people in your life, who you're able to ask questions to. And there's an incredible app, and it's called Shaper. It's SHAPR. And basically, it's an app where entrepreneurs can find mentors and coaches. It's retired people, very successful people who are just looking to down there. They really don't have much to do. They travel, they gigs, and I have it, and it is fantastic. And I've had a great conversation with people on there. So if you're looking for some help, definitely try downloading that app. It's called Shaper, SHAPR, and find some free mentorship advice on there from some really awesome people.
Thank you. That's a great tip.
Naomi, I'm taking notes.
Yeah, no worries.
Shaper.
It's great.
I'd like to circle back if I could, if you wouldn't mind if I address something regarding business and our community and the dollars within our community.
Mhm.
And there's responsibility, and that responsibility is to be borne by the business owner and by the consumer. So it's often, people say, oh, we don't support each other, and that narrative gets put out there. Well, I'll tell you, in some cases, perhaps that's true. But the black hair care industry, there is none other like it. If you open a restaurant and the entire black community decides that they will boycott your restaurant, you can sell to any other community that you want to and stay in business. If you opened a clothing store and the entire black community boycotted your clothing store, you could sell to any other community and you'd still stay in business. If you open a black hair care store and the entire black community boycotts you, it's done. It's over. So as a business within that community, in that space, it behooves me to be the very best business that I possibly can be, because my consumer owns 100% of that power. And so there's a responsibility for me in that space, but then as the consumer, there's a responsibility for you. How are you exercising that power? Where are you exercising that power? Which goes back to what others have said earlier. We own the power. We can choose to build wherever we want. As Linda said, she can exercise that power to move her dollar somewhere else. Now, I've watched this go from 1990. I've watched it from where a group of people were a supplier, a manufacturer, and then they moved from being manufacturers to being the distributors, and then they moved from being the distributors back to owning the retail stores. And again, with you, Lavinia, everybody's in business legally. They're buying legally, selling legally, regardless of their ethnicity. However, there were factors that came into play. There were monopolies that came into play. And a lot of my colleagues that I was in business with in 1990, they're not here anymore. If I started naming the stores in Toronto that have closed, you would know them. So I think it's important for us to understand, however, that we do have the power. I think it's important for us to understand that we're living in a new day. We're living in Amazon. You think Amazon cares about the brick and mortar store that possibly is putting them out of business? We have to carve out our own paths and our own lanes and create our own spaces to business. We have to be creative. We have to, and we can do it. We can figure it out. We have to be cooperative to support one another. I mean, just all of the business principles and practices that you would incorporate for yourself with excellence. These are things that will help us, but we also have to understand that there's going to be a deliberate choice to spend our money within the community. We are, for me, again, in such a short space of time, it's hard for me to unpack all of this, but the only reason that we lost control was some of the products that we were consuming. Some of the products that we were consuming came from countries that produce the raw goods,
right?
Braiding hair, weaves. That in my store in 1990, 70% of the products that I sold in my store were liquid products. 30% would have been weaves and braids. Fast forward 10 plus years, and I had moved and I moved on, but that had switched to 70% of the products were, the fibers, the weaves, the human hair, the braiding hair. And so when that switched to 70% products being weaves and braids, 30% of the products being liquid products, that switched the whole game regarding control of the industry. And that opened the door basically for people to basically take over that industry and open the retail stores and control the retail stores. So at one point, we would get the products sold to us as a distributor, Black-owned distributors. Then we'd sell it to the Black-owned beauty supply store. So we were always in partnership with various Asian countries regarding bringing in and importing those types of products. But then we lost control of distribution. We lost control of retail. Having said that, we are living in such a wonderful age today with the natural hair care movement. The natural hair care movement, we have more Black-owned manufacturers now than we ever had in any time in history. There are people making products in their homes, in their cottages. They're starting just like Annie Malone and just like Madam C.J. Walker did. We're in this age right now. And so as we exercise this power and not be afraid to buy from the independent manufacturer or the one who's not that big multinational corporation, we can see our dollars circulate within our own community. And I love it. I'm so glad for the natural hair care movement because I think it's opened the door. And then of course technology and online and also so many other opportunities. So you know, there's a real upside here, and there's a hopeful future, and I'm excited for this generation. I can't wait to see what it does. As you see, you know, my daughter, she's off and running and doing her thing, and I'd love to see the give back to the community where it's actually cash back going into the community, and that's the only way to keep dollars circling back within the Black community is to give it back to the Black community.
Amen.
That's it. Give it to the individuals in the Black community. If you give it to an individual in the Black community, we can support a business in the Black community. That just means that individual might get enriched. That doesn't mean the dollars are going to circulate back around. We have to develop programs where we're actually rewarding each other for doing business with each other. And that's the model that Annie Malone had. She had 75,000 reps. She was sharing her wealth within the community. And that's how it has to be done. So anyway, I hope that was a little clear because I'm trying to concise 30 years of observation into a short clip. But if you take anything away from this, be encouraged that we're living in a day that we can choose to support each other, and we've got lots of options.
Mark, you know, since we're here, we're on the natural hair platform. I would be remiss if I didn't bring up natural hair. And, you know, you mentioned something that triggered a thought that I wanted to make sure, you know, put on the platform. And, you know, our new guest, please, Ms. Marva Squires of Afrotique and Miss Yolandi Latham of All Pro NYC. Please feel free to weigh in on this. And of course, Ms. Linda and Naomi and Mr. Mark. But my question is, do you think with the proliferation of natural hair as being the modern beauty, do you think this is something that's able to displace the whole good hair narrative? Or do you think that that's the good hair narrative is here despite the whole natural hair community movement?
Right.
Anyone can win.
Well, I remember in the 80s when Afro came out and everybody was wearing Afro and all of a sudden it just died. I think it's because they didn't have the proper product to carry the Afro. But today, there's so many different products that you can try with your natural hair and everything that's to take care of your natural hair. I also remember when Fashion Fair started, Fashion Fair went to Revlon because Revlon only have one hair color for Black and one foundation for Black. And when Fashion Fair came out, they went to Revlon to ask them for backing. And they said to Fashion Fair, there's not enough Black people who wear makeup. So Fashion Fair developed their product in the kitchen or wherever, and they start selling it. And they noticed that they're losing all these customers because the one foundation hasn't been selling anymore because they're getting different choices. So now with the natural hair, Revlon is losing millions of dollars per year. And you know, they're coming back with a natural product for our hair, but their product is not natural. When you read the product, if the first thing you read in the product, you cannot pronounce it, It's not natural.
Yes.
It's not natural.
Right.
So most people are making a natural product in their home. And for me, I make the satin bonnet. The satin for our hair type is the best material for our hair. Not the cotton, not the silk. The satin, it holds the moisture while you're sleeping and make your hair soft in the morning. I remember my mom combing my hair when I was a young child. And most time I go to school, half of my hair comb and half not comb because it's so hard. She can't comb it. Then I found out about the satin. I think I went to the States and this lady told me, try the satin, not cotton, not silk, but satin. So I went ahead and I developed the satin bonnet. Now, the satin bonnet, I was buying the satin from an Indian man. And I realized when I make my bonnet and I sell them, he is getting part of my sale. So I decided now I'm going to do the African satin bonnet. So my money goes into the Black people business and then into my business. And he get a little bit for the satin.
Mm-hmm.
So I still put it back into my community when I make it for my community. So the natural hair is not going anywhere. It's going to be here for a long, long time.
Amen.
Yeah.
I feel like it's
I think oh sorry. I think what you had touched on, Lavinia, is really important in some of these terms, right? That we're so used to. Good hair, hard hair, difficult hair, nappy hair, you know, these terms that describe this difficulty associated with Afro-textured hair. And the difficulty comes the lack of maintenance and taking care of and hydrating your hair. It's not your hair, right? It's our ability to take care of it that made it difficult to maintain or hard, or these terms we've kind of adopted into our culture. And I think it's really interesting what the natural hair movement has done is, you know, what you were saying, Marva, with the Afro, when people were coming out and now, you know, people are searching for the right product. The natural hair movement technology, things like YouTube. YouTube has women and girls searching online exactly what they need to do for their products and exactly what ingredients they need to find. And you know, we're seeing that all the time. We're seeing new products forming with all these ingredients: shea butter, pomegranate, aloe, fruit extracts, coconut oil, castor oil, all of these things that we've been using for a long time, but now we're understanding what they actually do for our hair and how we actually use them. What's been missing in the community is typically what a does is a manufacturer makes a product and they decide what the product's going to be used for, the consumer they're going to target, all of that. The consumer, the product. What the store does is the store helps the consumer decide what product is for them based on the ingredients and all of the information manufacturer and based on the needs of the consumer. The stores that we have right now are missing that component, right? We miss that walkthrough. We miss that interaction, that question and answer session that we need to have. We put into YouTube, my hair doesn't hold moisture. I want my hair to grow. My hair needs to do this. My hair texture is this. We're asking those questions, but that needs to happen at the store level. And so for me, as a Black owned beauty supply, when someone walks in and they ask me a question, you know, I have a lived experience that I can talk with you to help you with that, right? Whereas in a lot of other areas, we don't have that. And so I think what we're doing is when you find a product that works for you, you don't think about your hair as hard. Your hair no longer becomes difficult. It might take a lot to manage. It might take a lot of effort to build your moisture level. But in terms of these terms we bind ourselves with, hardness, nappiness, all that stuff is dissolving. And I'm seeing it every day when I go in and I'm talking with clients on the phone and talking with manufacturers, and I'm bringing in own created items and things like that, because it actually work for the hair, and we have the science behind it to decide. You know, Christia Donaldson is a chemist. Susan Walker from Earth Tones Naturals, she's a natural. A lot of these Black-owned manufacturers, they are scientists. They are women who have formulated these products in body where processes of Black-owned brands are chemists. These women are chemists. And so it's been just incredible to see how the products have changed, but also how our knowledge and perception of our hair changed. And it's super powerful. I think it's changing every single day. I'm excited to see what these 5-year-old girls are going to look like when they're 20 years old. You know, a lot of our hair was relaxed when we were younger. A lot of our hair was not taken care of the way that it should have been. But now we have a different perspective on younger children. And I think we're going to see a lot in the next 15 to 20 years. I'm really excited about it.
Yeah.
You walk into an event and it's whole about 200 people, and most of them are young people. It's so amazing. And they made their own product to come and sell it there. So it's so amazing.
It's neat.
Yes.
And the satin, Marva, that's awesome, because, you know, I remember satin pillowcases were things that was put out there all the time. And, you know, people were wearing wool hats all the time. I have to live vicariously, as you can see, through my children now when it comes to hair care. But it's awesome to hear that you're making satin products.
But when I counsel people about the satin, I don't counsel them to wear the pillowcase for the hair. The pillowcase is for your skin.
Right.
You know, you wake up in the morning and you're rushing to go to work, and there's this crease in your face from the cotton pillowcase.
Right.
Compared to if you sleep on a satin pillowcase. The satin, when you're sleeping, it moves with your skin. The cotton does not move, and they give you those lines. So it takes a long time for you to get the crease of the face to go to work if you get a plate.
Right.
You know, so I don't encourage you to use the satin to the pillowcase for hair. It's for the skin.
That's for your skin. Okay.
Uh-oh, what's going on here? Okay. So yeah, that's fantastic that, you know, we all seem to be on the same page that natural hair, it's here to stay. I mean, quick story, like when I went natural back in 2008, the intention was to grow out my short, permed, relaxed ends and then go natural and literally relax it right back. And here I am 12 years later, that never happened. Thank God. But it's a journey, sure. And go ahead.
You know, Lavinia, it's interesting. You made me think of something. So you use the phrase "good hair." I was in 2006. I was in Atlanta at the Bronner Brothers show. Had a little display, and Chris Rock was coming around, and he was going in and out of booths. And he came to our booth. He was filming, and I guess he was doing research at that time for doing his documentary, Good Hair. And I remember my son. He was about 12. Naomi was there. She might have been 10, and we had just the guy had just come out with the twist sponges. It was 2006. It's just licking now, you know, the last few years. I remember my son offering Chris Rock the sponges. I remember saying, I wish I could do a Chris Rock. And he's nah, bro, I don't do the dreadlocks, you know. But the reason I mentioned that, you know, that documentary sort of exposed a lot of things. But I love what my good friend Stan Harris says. You know, he's an evangelist, and he says, you know, God created everything in the beginning. When he stood back, he said, it is good. He said, well, guess who made me? We all have good hair. You know, and so that's what everybody is born with, is good hair. So and I'm glad to see that these stereotypes are being busted down, and that the colonialism mindsets and mentality is challenged and being set aside.
You know, I have to say hooray to the African American. So you go on YouTube, I get so much information on the natural hair and everything like that. Everything you want to know about the history of Blacks, everything you want to know. on YouTube from the African Americans that travel to Africa and stuff like that and come back.
Mm-hmm.
So we get to the depth soon.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll be moving on soon. Moving on up.
Yes,
We're
indeed. And you have to stay vigilant as well.
yes.
I know at one point Naomi went through the store. The store was set up. We're sort of, remember I said earlier you have to carve out your own lanes, and so you start off sort of like a traditional beauty supply, and you bring in everything that you think everybody needs and wants, and so on and so forth. And then you start going through the products. And again, everybody's at a different place in their journey. So this is no disrespect to anybody who's at their point in their journey. So some people are still relaxing. That's where they are in their journey.
Fine. Yeah.
As I remember, as business owners, Naomi making a conscious decision, there's no relaxers in that store. We started going through things that said soap. We were looking at some of the soaps, and some of these soaps had bleaching cream in it. Those things. So none of those things are found in our stores. None of those things are going to be present. That is a choice that we've made. We don't think that's healthy for our community. So they're gone. So you got to be vigilant, and we are becoming an educated population where we are reading our labels and we do know what's in those products, and then you make a conscious choice. We know when we need sulfite in our products. We know when we need to have a clarifying shampoo, and we need a little bit of this or a little bit of that. So I think this education that has to continue on. And to your point, Naomi, that consultation, that's the other distinguishing mark within our own stores, that other stores that are wanting to sell our products, but they can't service us. They can't consult us. They can't guide us through anything. So I think we need to continue to extol the virtues of doing business within our own community, and the reasons why. It's not because I'm a Black-owned business. It's because I'm a business that can serve you and help you better than any other business.
Yeah.
Well, I think too, like something that Linda had mentioned as well earlier, and that you kind of touched on too, that was that when we talk about the price of product, right, Miss Linda, you had said, it might be over here, but what is the value that I'm getting associated with the product? When we think, if we pick up a leave-in conditioner, let's say, and it is for $4.99 or $5.99, when we think about the cost of shea butter, when we think about the cost of raw castor oil, when we think about the cost of honey and these natural ingredients, products go through a process. There's a cost that the manufacturer sells it at. And then as it moves through the supply chain, by the time it gets to the store, it's being sold at, there's been a price jump, right? A price from when it was created and a price from when it's being sold to you. So by the time it's being sold to you, for $4.99 or $3.99, $5.99. You have to ask yourself, what are actually, because natural ingredients are very expensive, right? Or you pick up a product and it doesn't have an expiry date on it, right? Why doesn't the product have an expiry date? If there are natural ingredients, things like fruit extracts, things like that, there should be expiry dates on the products, right? So little things like that, yes, this product might be cheaper, but this product's ingredient list is actually not really beneficial for you. It's just inexpensive and it makes your hair feel good, but it's not actually giving you any moisture. It's not actually giving you any water. So we have to like kind of just touching on what Mark was saying, we have to do this. And I actually saw Miss Linda Jones had posted something a little bit earlier. She posted a comment and it said, we need to cooperate with stores and we need to buy together to try to bring in the inventory. But there's two main things that are really, really important. The first thing is buying from Black-owned manufacturers. When we do that, we start the supply chain with ourselves, right? When we buy from a Black store, we supply chain with ourselves because we're the consumer. So we end the supply chain always, right? So how do we help fill in the holes in the rest of the supply chain with Black-owned companies? Buying from Black-owned manufacturers is the way to do that. We control that. And then when we do that, now we empower our people to enter the market. But the person who sells to the most people will be the biggest company. And at the end of the day, it does come down to turning your product and being able to to sell it. That is up to the business to do. That is up to the business to offer you service to get your dollar. That's up to the business to offer you the products that are hydrating for you. But at the end of the day, that is the only way, point blank period, that we are going to to succeed as a business is by having the most people buy from us and putting ourselves in the position to do that. But we choose to support Black-owned manufacturers because we understand that we're helping to close that supply chain and that they're beneficial for you. But that's just something to keep in mind, that, you know, for us to cooperate, even if we brought in all the inventory, if our money is sitting on our shelves and it's not selling, and then that's not a good position for stores to be in as well. So we kind of all have to work together to do that.
Absolutely.
You know, one of my top when I do lectures for young people, I normally tell them, if you go into the grocery store, in the bread section, there are lots of different type of breads in there, and then people choose what bread they like. So don't be discouraged that you have the same, you make the same product like somebody make. You might have some ingredients that someone is looking for in their product. So don't be afraid. You know?
Good point. Good point.
Right.
Vinia, I'm curious.
100%.
Somebody has put in the comment. I just wonder if they're still here, if they could unpack that, because I'd love to know a little bit more about what they're thinking. They're saying we have the power, but we don't have the support.
Who said that? I didn't see that comment, Mark.
Leave it catering, and I'd love
New York. She's in New York.
She's in New York. Yeah.
I'd love her to unpack that a little bit, because, you know, this would be good for us to. I think would be good for us to know and hear what that means.
Yeah. So Leave It to Leva is actually got a lot of family in here tonight.
Okay.
Yeah. We support each other, so we're just selling the myth right here, in person. But Leva, if you that'd be nice to unpack that a little bit. I agree. I think that's a fantastic comment, and I would love to hear more about you know, And while we're waiting for her to unpack that, there's so many amazing gems of advice from, you know, business owners and leaders. Everybody on this call right now has so much knowledge. And so one of my questions for anyone who wants to answer this is, what is one piece of practical advice that you would give to someone who is new to their entrepreneurial journey? And I'm just throwing it out there while we wait for Miss Leva. She joins us.
Well, I would offer.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
You go ahead.
I think the one thing that I would offer would definitely be to plan out your business model. Everything in terms of business has to do with your ability to buy and sell and make. And so you have to answer important questions about what you're selling, who you're selling it to, why would they buy from you, how are you getting it to them, how are you telling them about it, what, you know, all of those questions have to be answered, and they can't just be answered from well, I believe, or I think that people would buy it, or I think that people would like it, or, you know, you have to have very tangible research done to answer those questions about your business model. What does your profit look like? You know, how are you going to make it? How much are your costs? What does it look like? Writing all of these things out before you jump in, invest, and run forward with something that, you know, you might not have done enough research on first. Obviously, it takes time to be able to really see the fruition of things, but you have to answer some key questions before you run with a business model to make sure that it's profitable and that it's viable before you know, you jump head first. And as well, ask for help. You know, ask questions. Find people who know more than you do about what you're asking about, and get opinions for sure.
Ms. Linda, what piece of advice do you think Annie Malone would have offered the group? If she were alive.
I see here Marilyn Latham said, stay strong, have perseverance and great determination. I think that's what Annie Malone would really say, because she demonstrated that over and over again in the different products that she offered, because she started with hair care and then she ended up with a whole line of perfumes and powders and deodorants. I mean, all kind of things. So she reinvented herself. She determined to try and look at what Naomi was saying is what's needed, what you need to sell and for how much, and get it out there. And she had price lists that she encouraged people to stay close to, so you don't overprice yourself and make your business go defunct before you really get it started. As I said before, Annie Malone was one who tried to give her agents, when she trained them, everything that would make them successful, that would make them stay in the game. And I thought very, very important with the model that she had. I made mention of the fact that somebody shared a contract that their grandmother, their great grandmother, had as an agent from 1960. And in that contract, it asked so many questions and let people understand what you're about to get into and the things that you'd have to discipline yourself to do in order to be successful here. And then she asked for people to vouch for you, that you were a person of a character that you could follow through on that. And if you didn't measure up to that, she'd send you back home.
I love to see that.
I love that.
Me too. Me too.
So
how to represent the brand.
That was real important.
Yes. Yeah.
I would add one thing. I agree with everything that everybody has said so far. Obviously, pray for wisdom and guidance, but on top of that, pay your accountant. Start it right. Pay your lawyer to start it right. Get your paperwork and your documentation all in order.
Pay your lawyer. I'm just kidding.
Yes, and pay your accountant. I'll tell you, when I started, and I remember talking to an accountant, and he told me it was going to be $300 a month. This is 1990. Well, I'm not even taking $3 a month out of the business. I'm trying to get it started. I'm thinking, how in the world am I going to pay this guy $300 a month when I'm just struggling to survive right now at this stage? And I thought, I'm going to go out, and I bought myself the software. I bought Bedford Accounting, and we'll do it ourselves. What a mess. By the time we got to the, a year or two, you don't know where you're going, and there's trouble all over the place. Just realize the value of the professionals that are around you and try to find a way to make it happen, because you're booked, so you don't get in trouble with the taxes and the government, and just know where you are, because you can be doing business. You could be thinking you're doing great, and your accountant's going, in 6 months down the road, I see you're going to have a real cash flow problem. You got a great big order over here, and they're asking for net 60. You finally got Shoppers Drug Mart or somebody to supply, and they want net 90, and your manufacturer wants net 30, and it looks like you're doing good, but you're out of business in 60 days because you can't pay your bills.
Oh, man.
So your accountant will be able to see these things if they're good.
Right.
We have a great bookkeeper. If anybody is looking for any, she is Black. She is incredible. She was the director of finance for a large company in Mississauga for 10 years, decided to do her own thing, and she is so incredible. If anyone is looking for someone to help them with finance direction, bookkeeping, like she is, let me know, because she's amazing.
I mean, I'm looking for an accountant myself, so I'm definitely.
Girl, I'll shoot you her information.
Yes, I'm gonna connect, definitely.
You want people to challenge your thoughts and your ideas, and support it. Well, like, can you really do this, and how, and not to discourage you, because you have to have vision. Because you might want to. Sometimes you don't have to. Sometimes you need to ask yourself, you can't say I can't, but you might want to say, how can I?
Right.
And then when you ask yourself, how can I, then you'll continue to search till you'll find a way. And sometimes the question is not what can I do, it's what should I do, because you can do almost anything. What should you do? And all these professionals will help you sort some of those things out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This has been such a fantastic conversation. I mean, I am so grateful to each and every one of you for dedicating your time tonight to this. I mean, I'm cognizant of the fact that it's 12:25.
My gosh.
Wow. What time it is?
I know. I was like, oh my gosh.
Ms. Linda wasn't lying when she said that she could talk about Ms. Annie Malone for as long as possible. Thank you. Thank you so much. For those of you, fun fact, Merlene Latham.
I thank you for asking me.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Your favorite comment, Ms. Linda, was from my mom.
I truly do.
So, yeah, very night. Too funny.
I've admitted immensely. I thank you all for inviting me to be a part of the conversation. It's been fantastic.
Thank you. That makes me feel. I'm so happy you're enjoying it. As much as I am.
Thank you for
facilitating. I love this.
And thank you for your wonderful Curl family. I see some great comments, and over there on the right, I've been reading them all, and really blessed by a lot of them.
Yeah, we meet every Wednesday.
This is a beautiful platform.
Thank you.
Every Wednesday?
Every Wednesday at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We've never, ever had such a large audience. You'll learn something from me. I'm extremely transparent.
Good.
There's no other way to be, right? And
exactly.
So we're usually not this large, but because of our esteemed list, and I cannot say that enough, this is the reason why we're so large tonight, because people wanted to hear from Ms. Linda. They wanted to hear from Naomi. They wanted to hear from Mr. Mark. They wanted to hear from Ms. Samantha, So that's the reason why I think that it was as so many people came out. I guess returning back to Self-Made, the movie, Ms. Linda, what truths were in the movie? Because we talked a lot about the false and the fabrications that was really depicted quite strongly, but what truths do you think were in there?
That's a harder question. Because I'll be honest with you, I only watched it once, and it was difficult for me to watch it even then. And I was so disappointed, because when I first learned that the movie was going to be made, I was excited about the possibility that America and this large format is going to learn so much about an industry that was significant to Black commerce. And I knew that there was probably not going to be a whole lot about Annie Malone. At least that's what I thought. And I was hoping that there would be some mention of her, but that there was going to be a lot of information about Madam C.J. Walker. And then when it turned out the way it did, I found it difficult to say much of anything that was positive about the movie, because I was so offended by so many other things. I came away with the fact that both of these women were not portrayed very well. And the only fact is that they did exist. They did have millions. Well, they did exist. I'll put it that way, because in the movie, they don't say that both of them have millions. Miss Walker had a daughter and another person that they brought into their home, and that they did have legions of women that they tried to mentor. But a lot of the other things were just so twisted. It was difficult for me. That's my honest take on that one.
Yeah. I appreciate the truth bombs, and I think back on that movie when I initially watched it, I was like, oh wow, I had no idea there was so much drama around this. And I mean, we touched on so much of it, but we didn't even talk really about, you know, the infidelity of Mr. CJ Walker and the apparent conversation or the narrative that, oh, well, he left the dark-skinned woman for a light-skinned woman. Like, the colorism was just all over it, and not in a...
It was overwhelmingly negative.
Yeah.
The boxing scene was inflammatory.
Yeah.
Colorism to me was inflammatory. In fact, an interesting point is, at one point in the census, I believe in 1910, Annie Malone was considered mulatto in that census. In the census in 1910, Madam C.J. Walker was considered mulatto. In the census for 1920, 1930, 1940, each of those women were considered African American. I think it had more to do with the way they took the census, with actual census takers who didn't really ask a whole bunch of questions about what your makeup was. But if you look at the census, the actual census, you will see that there wasn't a question that those ladies were not mulatto. No way at all. So you look at some of the horrible twists of facts. Could have been factual in that particular piece. And again, that's because I've researched it, not because I've taken it at face value, not because I've listened to the hype to hear that this is the real story of the first African-American female millionaire. And I don't see really that this is based loosely upon or derived from, or that it's not a documentary. It got a really large buildup about this is the real story about the first African-American female self-made millionaire. You don't look at the fact that if you're not skilled to do that. Yes, we are educated to know that there are fictional things and there are non-fictional things and what the differences to them are. Yes, we're educated enough to know that there are made-for-TV movies and there are documentaries that are supposed to give it to us with all facts and nothing but the facts. But people listen, and the movie industry caters to things that aren't any of those. They sell dollars. They do things and they say things and they portray things that sell dollars.
Yeah. And it just seems like that.
Or make dollars, I should say.
Right.
Yeah, it's so sad. It's actually very sad. I feel like before I was like, yeah, like, you know, why would they do, you know? But now when you really hear like the just stretching, the unnecessary stretching of a story, these women's lives, like, and actually, Lavinia, when you had said earlier, like, how would you feel if your legacy had been just tarnished instantly in front of 50 million people and you had worked your whole life? And I just thought in 100 years, if I, let's say, do something crazy with Beauty Club or whatever, and someone makes a movie about my life and they paint me as this like mean, weird, like, it's just, you know, in 2020 we shouldn't be doing that to women, you know. And like I never, like, Miss Linda, until you kind of have really broken it down right now, I'm just like, oh my gosh, like I just want to tell everybody, I just want to like share all your blog posts, and I just want to, like, because it just seems so just terrible, like it is just so upsetting.
It's unjust. It's unjust. And you know what's really going to be what's the saddest part for me is that the majority of people that I share the Annie Malone story with has never heard of Annie Malone. So it's not, you know, so it's almost a double, you know, problem, because people hadn't even got to hear the truth about her before even seeing this. So now there's a lot of undoing, or you might get a comment on a thread somewhere. Like one of the comments I heard on Black Toronto was, "Oh, they didn't have to do Annie Malone like that." What does that mean to anybody?
Yeah.
Why do they have to portray her like that? That doesn't tell them that it was true, that it was untrue. There's no unpacking of all of these things, and so so it's going to take a lot of work. I feel, and I think we have a responsibility, and that's one of the reasons why I reached out to Linda. I feel we have a responsibility to rehabilitate some of these folks, and myself included.
Nobody knows. Nobody knows that in 1917, when there was a race riot in East St. Louis, and people were fleeing that community, coming across the bridge to St. Louis, that there were a large number of people with automobiles that were getting people off the bridge and trying to get them to safety and get them to a place to be and clothing and things. And there were bunches of vehicles that were dispatched. Annie Malone had several vehicles that she sent across that bridge to pick people up. Mr. and Mrs. Malone were among so many people in the St. Louis area that were trying to rescue people. People don't know that. People don't, they see and they heard how vicious and mean she was. But even in the movie, they had Addie Monroe calling her mother when both of those ladies were orphans. So why would you put that in the movie?
Right.
That is egregious. Actually, that's egregious.
Just to push forward that narrative.
Yes. Both of those ladies were orphaned at an early age. So why would you have one calling their mother? That was very difficult for me. So that's why I tell you, when you ask about what went right with the movie, that was a little hard for me.
Understandable.
Yeah. Wow.
Well, thank you so much, everyone. I think a lot of our friends are starting to dissipate from our girl chat. But you know what? For those who are here, thank you so much. We've shared so many truths. We've opened up blasted open the vault of truth and facts. Thank you to Ms. Linda. And, thank you very much to Mr. Mark Adams for even connecting us, and, Ms. Samantha and Ms. Naomi. Thank you very much.
And Ms. Jones, because she was writing in lots of facts too. Ms. Jones was very, very instrumental, especially during the time I had difficulty getting in.
Yes.
And this is a great resource of information about Annie Malone, and cannot be missed in that conversation.
Yeah. Thank you for correcting, because Ms. Linda Jones, she dropped so many gems. Miss Linda Jones, for anybody else who is still here, Vice President of the Annie Malone Historical Society. So yeah, thank you very much. So I always like to leave on a positive note. So can we each, starting with Mark, then Naomi, and then Ms. Linda, we'll leave our strongest connection to Ms. Annie Malone, the best for last. But if you can tell me, just one piece of something, a glimmer of hope. It could be anything. It could be related to the conversation. It could be, for tomorrow, just something, just to leave us with a little something to go to bed with tonight. Starting with Mark.
You know what? Grateful that we're all here, able to have this type of conversation that's thoughtful and respectful. And to echo everybody else's words, we're celebrating two wonderful women. We can get through all of the weeds and actually get to the golden nuggets that are there for us, and just to celebrate that, and to celebrate this generation that's doing the same thing. All of our independent manufacturers.
Thank you.
I just want to say thank you so much to Linnea. Thank you so much for putting this on. Thank you so much for all of your information. I am a sponge always, always soaking up and learning. So this was a great opportunity for me. And as well, I just want to let you know that Black women are the largest growing group of entrepreneurs in the world, in terms of a demographic. And so I really am excited about who we are, about the power that we have. I feel that we do not need to let anything hold us back. We can overcome. We have standing on our ancestors' shoulders. They're holding us up. We're channeling their strength. And I am just so empowered by this conversation and just really channeling the strength of those ladies tonight. So I just want to say thank you so much to everybody for being able to give me that strength. And I just hope that you're able to find it within yourself as well whenever you're accomplishing whatever you're doing, because I'm feeling it right now. Thank you.
My comment is twofold. The power of collective economics is demonstrated in what Annie Malone did over the years and at the magnitude in which she did it. I think that servant leadership was one of her largest gifts to the world, in that she constantly tried to uplift people. And leadership, it proved, is not so much your ability to control what happens or provide for other people as it is in providing the confidence in what you've shown people to follow you to a place they wouldn't normally go by themselves. Mm-hmm. She had all of that. And I think if we were to try to emulate that, we'd have a really special place to be in our world, in our community.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, Miss Liz, I just want to go for breakfast or something.
I know.
I just want to go. I'm coming to
I wish I could do that. I wish I could do that. That's a beautiful, beautiful sentiment. That's a beautiful sentiment. I thank you. I thank you.
I would love to meet you.
I thank you all.
I know.
I look forward to it. I look forward to it. Who knows what we can do?
It out there.
Who knows what we can do? Thank you. That would be wonderful. I have enjoyed you all immensely. I wish all of the ladies in your group much success. You have a very, very powerful group of people. All of you, not just the group that's on every Wednesday, but in Mr. Adams and Miss Adams. I think it is wonderful that you all have the mindset that you do. It's beautiful to look at.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't.
Thank you.
Pause.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry. I was just saying thank you, Lavinia, as well. Thank you so much for the work you put into this. Thank you for getting us all together. Thank you. Honestly, it's so funny. I have fine natural hair, and I didn't even really realize how you do actually moisturize until I saw, like, obviously we had met before, but when I saw what you were doing, and you really are providing a people. So I just want to thank you as well for all of your work that you did, putting all the questions together and getting everybody together. It's really appreciated.
Thank you very, very much.
Absolutely.
And, tonight, nothing, I can't even imagine the success of how tonight would have been. Like, I was so overwhelmed, and I told Mark initially when we first started talking, when he said that, I'm going to connect with Ms. Linda. I was like, you're going to do what? I was just overwhelmed.
Yes.
Your prestige and your depth of knowledge, and Naomi, when I met you, you're such a magnetic spirit, and Mark is just that person who everybody should know. Everybody on this live is just so fantastically amazing, and I truly do feel blessed. I don't know who on here is religious, but I do believe in God very much, and I pray every day. And I do believe that God's hand is on this conversation, and he's blessing each and every one of us in here right now and going forward. And, you know, sometimes you can just feel that the hand is on you and on a moment. And I think his spirit, God, was guiding us together tonight, because I'm telling you, I only saw that article about how upset, you know, Ms. Linda Nance, and, you know, the Layla, I always pronounce her name incorrectly. I'm so sorry. Ms. Bundles. I read just last night. Alelia Bundles. I just read it last night. How upset she was with the depiction, and I heard the rumblings, but I only heard it last night, and I said, you know, we have to talk about this, and for it to come together like this so quickly, this isn't me. This is all of us together as one. So thank you. And with that, I think I will close the live. I've got to wake up tomorrow to answer the Toronto Catholic District School Board. But good. It's so good. So good. I do not want to leave, to be honest.
Thank you. Yeah.
Good night, and thank you again to all of you.
Thank you so much for everything.
Sorry?
Nice to meet you, Miss Linda. Thank you so much, Lavinia. Thank you, guys.
You are welcome. Good night, everybody.
Oh, before you leave, is there
Thank you. Good night, guys.
Good night, guys.
Okay, good night. Bye.
Bye.
Good night.